Nothing but the truth in this inquiry. So help you God. Thank you, Your Honor. The oath has been administered.
Thank you. We will now proceed to our next item in the agenda, the continuation of the deliberation. We will first call on the first interpellator, the Honorable Congressman Rog Gutierrez. Yes, you are first to interpellate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yung mga gusto pong, for a while, Congressman, yung mga gusto pa pong Congressman na magpalista lang po, lumapit lang po kay COMSEC. Thank you po. Please continue, Congressman Rog.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just have a few questions based on the ARs that we've done. And given that this is already our fourth hearing, I'm sure COA is very much used to our questioning, and I hope they could indulge us some more. Actually, Mr. Chair, yung aking mga katanungan is supposedly directed to the Special Disbursement Officer of the OVP, because under my understanding, based on the joint memo, this would have been SDO Acosta's responsibility, because under number 6.3.2, Section B, it is part of the Special Disbursing Officer's responsibility to maintain separate records of all transactions and to retain a certified copy or duplicate copy of the required supporting documents and reports on utilization. However, and my questioning is precisely on this, on the acknowledgement receipts attached as justification, yung documentary evidence presented. However, given that the SDO Acosta is not around, I guess we'll be forced to at least to get this some of the answers I'll be forced to ask the COA. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to direct my questions perhaps to Attorney Camora from the ICFAO, if they would be so kind to indulge. Just as to add context po, no, Attorney Camora. We know po that the confidential funds are special in the sense that they respond to, they pertain to a certain purpose only allowable under the Joint Memo Circular. But this does not mean that this is a blank check po, no? It's not a blanket authority that it could be spent without justification. Would that be a fair statement po?
Attorney Camora, you're recognized.
That is correct po, Your Chair.
So,
Mr. Chair.
in line with that and in line with the requirements of the COA, you would ask actually for liquidation reports. Although it's special in the sense that it is directed only to the chairman of the COA, you still have the ICFAO to study this. And in fact, it is the ICFAO who gives the AOMs, the notice of disallowance, and the notice of credit in relation to confidential fund spending. Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
That is correct, Mr.
Nice,
Chair.
So, Mr. Chair, given the, maybe no, I have a timeline again of the 2022 confidential fund usage of the OVP. If I understand correctly, it was disbursed within 11 days. This was for December of 2022, and the basis of the funds was a transfer from the contingent fund. But there was an AOM issued by your office. Anong date po nito?
Mr. Chair, the first AOM is dated September 14, 2023.
So for the 2022 confidential funds, September 2023 yung AOM. And the response by the Office of the Vice President was received around what time po kaya?
It was received by the ICFAO on October 19, 2023, Mr. Chair.
October 2023. And one of the findings there was insufficient the DEPs po, no? And this would be pertaining to, in support of the liquidation reports, yung ating mga acknowledgement receipts. Because compared to usual spending by government wherein we actually need official receipts, kapag ang pinag-uusapan po ay confidential or intelligence funds, because precisely confidential dapat yung usage nito, it is sufficient to submit acknowledgement receipts. Tama po ba?
Mr. Chair, since the requirement is documentary evidence of payment, not necessarily official receipt.
Correct.
So they could submit acknowledgement
Attorney Camora,
receipts.
pwede pong pakilakasan po ninyo yung boses ninyo.
Documentary evidence of payment po ang required sa joint circular. So the acknowledgement receipts are acceptable po.
Acceptable. Correct po, no? And I agree with that. So the acknowledgement receipts are acceptable. However, one of the findings of the AOM was kulang nga po yung DEPs. And this is pertaining to the acknowledgement receipts.
The first time na nag-liquidate po sila, wala po talagang submitted na DEPs.
Opo. So that's why you had the AOMs in September 2023. Part of the findings was the lack of the DEPs, precisely yung mga ARs natin, and then they answered in October 2023. When they filed in October 2023, was it already there, yung DEPs? Yung justification pa nila?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it was part of their compliance.
So it was submitted October 2023. After that, there was a notice of disallowance pertaining to that quarter. Kailan po ito na-issue?
Mr. Chair, before that, a notice of suspension was issued. So normally, after the AOM is issued and the COA is not satisfied with the compliance, we issue a notice of suspension, which was issued on December 13, 2023.
December 2023. And the notice of suspension you mentioned is when the COA is not satisfied. So yung pagsubmit po ng October 2023 DEPs, hindi pa po satisfied yung COA. And what was the reason that you were not satisfied? Mali-mali po ba yung mga AR or kulang pa po yung mga AR?
May mga ibang ARs po na may issues and may kulang pa po na additional documentation on other ARs.
And after the notice of suspension for December 2023, they were given another chance to submit additional documents. Is that correct? Or wala na po?
Meron pa, Mr. Chair.
Meron pa.
They were given 90 days.
90 days.
To,
When did they, apologies, when did they submit their additional DEPs po? In response to the notice of suspension?
Mr. Chair, we received their compliance on March 13, 2024.
March 2024. And finally, I suppose after this, ito na po yung disallowance?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Anong date po ng disallowance po natin?
The disallowance is dated August 8, 2024, Mr. Chair.
August 2024. Thank you. I'll get back to that po. No? I wanted to establish a timeline because one of the things that we have found with the acknowledgement receipts is that there seemed to be a disconnect in relation to the dates, especially considering the fourth quarter of 2022 CF. Mr. Chair, maybe ask the Secretariat. I don't know if they prepared it. I want to flash on screen an acknowledgement receipt. Here. Is the date legible po sa inyo? Can you see? I'd like to confirm that the date that it says is actually December 28, 2023. Do you see that, Attorney Camora?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And supposedly this was attached. I'm not sure if this would come in for the first batch of response in December 2023 or if it came in with the second batch of response in March 2024. But this is supposedly a DEP presented for the fourth quarter of 2022. Isn't it strange? Not really strange, it's outright false for it to justify an expense in 2022, but the date is 2023. Would that be correct, Ms. Camora? Attorney Camora?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. Actually, one of the findings under the notice of suspension is that some of the acknowledgement receipts were dated December 2023, and some were even undated.
Yes. And this would be the basis for disallowance? Or was this, this was the findings of the AOM po, no?
Yes, that is under the notice of suspension na po,
The
Mr. Chair.
suspension.
Since nakapag-comply na sila, so yung observation namin was already under the notice of suspension po.
How would it be complied po, Attorney Camora? How did they rectify the AR? My understanding po is pag submitted po yung AR, this is already supposedly presumed to be regular, and then you have an outright problem such as 2023. Although you might say na typographical error, but correct me if I'm wrong, this happens more than once po. Is that correct, Attorney Camora?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Would you know how many ARs exactly yung dated 2023 submitted for 2022?
Mr. Chair, we have attached it in the original notice of suspension. However, we do not have the figures today.
Sige po. Well, just to help you po, no, based on our study, 158 of the acknowledgement receipts have that typographical error. We would understand the typographical error if it happens once or twice, and at most for one individual to make that mistake multiple times. But for supposedly acknowledgement receipts which come from different sources, this should be different people issuing it po, diba? These are different people signing off for different expenses. Now, for 158 people to make the same mistake, is that something that would be acceptable? Is that an acceptable margin of error for the COA?
Mr. Chair, they answered in their compliance as to the
Mr. Chair, apologies. Maybe know what does it mean to answer with the compliance? So they took back yung AR na mali po yung date, or
no, Mr. Chair, yung compliance nila contained their answers why they had acknowledgement receipts dated December 2023 and undated acknowledgement receipts.
and what was the answer po, Attorney Camora?
They said they have inadvertently contained clerical or typographical errors indicating 2023 instead of 2022. Considering the nature of confidential activities which are usually conducted discreetly and completed within a short period of time, and in addition to the lack of attention to details of personnel attending to voluminous papers from several individuals, some data in the acknowledgement receipts submitted as proof of transactions may have been missed.
Mr. Chair, apologies. I think that portion would suffice po, Attorney Camora. No? So the answer of compliance, they did not dispute, they did not take back the ARs, but they simply gave that defense that it was an inadvertence, or basically typo nga po siya. But precisely the point, Mr. Chair, that I think that the committee should consider is that it's a typographical error for 158 acknowledgement receipts. This is not something that I think, although we do not argue with the COA, of course, this is their jurisdiction. It is precisely their decision if that compliance would be sufficient. However, I think for us to consider in strengthening the laws that we are going to craft, in support perhaps of the joint memorandum circular, I think we have to be stricter with the acknowledged receipts to be issued. Because, Mr. Chair, I would like to propose one thing. Of course, the COA will not be able to answer this. But given the timeline po, no, September 2023 yung first na AOM, the October 2023 was the compliance with the first batch of ARs, and then December 2023, the notice of suspension. And that was the time siguro po, no, that they were coming up with these new ARs. It would make more sense, Mr. Chair, for them to make that mistake. Because when pag nagkaka-typographical error po natin sa date, the usual mistake is you put on the date that is current. Isn't it possible, Mr. Chair, based on human experience, isn't it more likely that these ARs were prepared a year after the fact already? That they were prepared in December 2023, because this precisely coincides with the date in which they submitted the second batch of the ARs. I don't think, Mr. Chair, this was a mistake that was committed in December 2022. This was a mistake that was committed after the fact, after the AOM, and after the notice of suspension, when they were rushing to comply with yung mga butas po na lahat ng COA. I think this is something that the committee should consider, especially when it comes to the compliance with the COA. We are not faulting the COA, of course, and we respect them. This is their jurisdiction. But one thing that we understand, that we see from the COA, is that generally they are not really ministerial, but they would err on the side of caution rather than put themselves in the place to, exercise discretion regarding the disbursements by any agency. Sa kanila po, as long as complied yung DEP, and as long as there's an explanation, they would accept it. However, I think the COA has to go above and beyond that requirement. Because, Mr. Chair, just to highlight also how spurious this seems and how bogus. If December 2022 po yung date dapat ng AR, tapos December 2023 yung date, it wouldn't even correspond to any confidential funds. It's not possible if ever the reasoning was nagkapalitan ng AR, because I understand that might be one of the excuses for inadvertence. Baka nagkapalitan yung AR for December 23 and December 2022. Pero wala pong December 2023. If we recall, the fourth quarter of the confidential funds for the Office of the OVP was never dispersed. They chose, although it was already included in the General Appropriations Act, they chose not to disperse yung fourth quarter. So saan po na ilalagay itong December 2023 AR if in fact they would say inadvertence nagkapalitan yan, or if they say typographical error naman, it wouldn't make sense. What's that doing in December 2022? 158 times po nangyari. More likely, this was the same mistake committed by perhaps a few persons, which raises the question, are these acknowledgement receipts spurious? Are they bogus? Are they false? In addition to that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to present another acknowledgement receipt. If the Secretariat could please flash yung November 1 po.
Kung Rog, gusto ko lang linawin, 158 times na ang date ay 2023.
Mr. Chair, based on what our office has found, 158 of the ARs corresponding to 23.8 million were submitted for the for the fourth quarter of 2022 disbursement, but they were citing 2023. Ang sabi nga po ng COA na ang citing the answer of the OVP is that inadvertence po.
Ang dami naman pagkakamali nun. Kung magkakamali ka, dapat isa lang. Sa 2023, last quarter, wala na silang confidential fund. So parang lumalabas, lumagpas yung kanilang liquidation. Sobra-sobra yung liquidation na nilabas nila. Tama po ba yung pagkakaintindi ko sa sinasabi ninyo?
Well, Mr. Chair, your guess is the same as ours, but it could also be na these are ARs belatedly prepared.
Okay. Sige po. Thank you po. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, proceeding onward, may we ask the Secretary to flash yung November 17, 2023 AR. Yun. Thank you. Attorney Camora, is it legible po? Can you see that the date is November 27, sorry, 2023? The 2022.
November, I cannot see it. November 17, Mr.
November 27 po,
Chair?
2022.
27.
Well, Attorney Camara, apologies, perhaps di lang kita masyado sa screen, but on paper nakita po na November 27, 2022 po siya. If my understanding is correct, the AR should correspond to the period of the confidential funds actually dispersed and used. Tama po ba? So although it is for the fourth quarter of 2022, this was submitted as an AR there, it should correspond to the 11 days of disbursement po that they actually had it. Because if I understand correctly, anong date nga po yung first, yung pag-issue nung check for the OVP confidential funds?
Ano? December 20, 2022, Mr. Chair.
December 20, 2022. So definitely, this is after November 27, 2022. Would the COA have, of course, I would not fault COA for this. This is supposedly a question for the Special Disbursing Officer, si SDO Acosta, but given that she's not here, I am constrained to ask the COA, para saan po kaya would this be considered? Because if we also consider, baka sabihin naman natin na typographical error, baka dapat November 2023 po ito, wala rin pong fourth quarter confidential funds ang OVP for 2023. Tama po ba?
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
So in that case, how would the COA appreciate this acknowledgement receipt?
Normally, Mr. Chair, it should be noted that confidential funds should not be used as payment for reimbursement of previous activities. So it would have been flagged as a reimbursement expense, so not allowed.
So this would have been disallowed totally. And perhaps there's a good chance that this is part of the disallowance actually of your. But I think, Mr. Chair, what is striking for this committee is, of course, the COA has already acted on the disallowance. But what should be considered is the fact that this could not have happened. I mean, reimbursement might be one explanation, but how could you reimburse something that this was even the first batch of confidential funds? December 21 po ba? Tama ba? December 21?
December 20, Mr. Chair, yung date ng check.
December 20 po yung cheque. This is the first confidential funds ever issued to the OVP for this administration. Yet they have acknowledged receipts for November 27, 2022. Ibig sabihin po, wala pa pong confidential funds. They're already coming up with their acknowledgement receipts.
Mr.
I think-
Chair, with the indulgence of Congressman Rodriguez, may I just...
Congressman Abante.
Bago ko makalimutan to, no? Nakalagay dito, yung pakianong audit yung, yung acknowledgement receipt yan. Ito po ba ay allowed ng COA? Pag gumamit ka nung 150,000 na rewards, pakiano nga yung acknowledgement receipt, pakilagay nga uli. Ayan. Allowed po ba ng COA yan? Yung payment of rewards nakalagay medicines? Allowed po ba ng COA yan?
Mr. Chair, that is one of the observations po. Na,
So therefore, kung yan ang observation nyo, dinisallow nyo.
yes, Mr. Chair. Part
Okay,
of the
so that
disallowance
was
niyo.
actually 150,000 used for payment of rewards for medicines was disallowed by COA. Ganun po ba?
It is one of the disallowed accounts, Mr. Chair, yung payment of reward medicines.
Ito, disallowed to, di ba?
Probably, sir, since kasama naman siya
Teka, attorney, but probably.
Yes, sir. Since it is an acknowledgement
Di
receipt
ba?
of payment of rewards.
You're a good lawyer. You cannot just say probably. You have to be sure about it, di ba? So, di talagang disallowed to, di ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
O yan, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Please continue, Congressman Rog.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Congressman Abante. Basically, what we're trying to say here po, no, in relation to the dates, whether this is for reimbursement of, although illegal po, no, it's not supposed to be allowed. Whether this was a justification for reimbursement or this was inadvertence or typographical errors, despite being repeated over 158 times, these are clear red flags po in relation to the AR submitted by the office. And this is something that we should consider. Looking forward, we should consider po this in aid of legislation, perhaps legislation to strengthen this joint circular to make sure that this doesn't appear again, or perhaps stringent penalties for when this is caught. But more important than that, we still have to hold them accountable po, no? For this, although this is already passed, although there's already this notice of disallowance, accountability should be had for this. Now, in addition po, moving forward from these erroneous dates or inadvertent dates, I would like to present another documentary evidence. May we have po the Secretariat flash yung acknowledgement receipt for Mr. or Miss NP. Yun. Attorney Camora, when we're talking of acknowledgement receipts, basically it's something like this one. It's very bare. It just has the amount received, for what purpose, and you have the name and the date. That's all that is required. However, when it comes to the name, is this usually the name of the person or signature or both?
They would give us normally yung name and signature, but actually the signature is which is more important
Which is
to the
more
COA. Since we know that unsigned documents are really not good documents. So, kung signature lang, okay lang po siya. Pero kung name lang po, we will flag it as unsigned document po.
Yes. And what is the reasoning for this? Because a name can be written by anyone, but a signature is supposedly unique. Is that a fair statement?
Yes,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
So what happens when, for example, here, it may not be seen, it's redacted precisely because it's confidential. However, it could be noted that this name was written in block letters, which are not distinctive by any manner. Yet, this was what was submitted as an acknowledgement receipt. So in cases such as this, it's very possible that someone purporting to be Mr. NP is writing the name for NP. Would that be correct, Attorney Camora?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
So in this case, this would be another case of an irregular AR. Would that be correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And of course, when it comes to the ARs that are just block letters and names, because precisely it could be purporting to be that person, but signed by anyone else, this should be disallowed, Mr. Chair. But of course, as mentioned again by Attorney Camora, alam ko baka narinig din na po kayo with all of these questions for the ICFA, which are all redundant. But it just is an additional proof po that what we're looking at here are red flags when it comes to acknowledgement receipts. And I think we really should strengthen po siguro the DEPs that would be required for confidential funds. Kasi po, hindi po to biro. And if you look at it precisely, we're talking about a single payment for 400,000 pesos as a reward payment, which could be anyone because hindi nga po signed. Kung sa mga signatures nga po, nagkakaduda tayo kung totoo yung signature. Paano pa kaya pag walang signature at all? How do we know that this person exists? These are some issues that we should consider po, Mr. Chair, when we're going to craft our legislation to strengthen po yung Joint Memorandum Circular. Mr. Chair, I had other questions, but I think this could only be answered by SDO Acosta. So I would like to manifest that I would like to join po yung, I have the same sentiments as Chairman Abante that these persons invited should appear. At least, it would be our 5th hearing already and still we have no answers, and I think it would the answers really rely on their attendance, and this is only for the accountability, for the truth that our people would see. So I think we should really have a harder stance for requiring their attendance. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would now defer and yield to our other colleagues here today. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, COA.
Thank you, Congressman Rodriguez. The next interpellator is Congresswoman Pami Zamora.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chair, since wala naman yung mga invited guests natin from the OVP, I will not be raising any questions. Rather, I would just like to point out a very important manifestation, which I believe is very important and vital for our proceedings. No? Kaunting backtrack lang po tayo. Over the past hearings, Mr. Chair, we've discussed the contents of the accomplishment reports, and I'm sure we all have copies of that, at kung sino ang naghahanda at pumipirma ng mga ito. And as we have confirmed, ang naghahanda at pumipirma ng mga ito ay yung SDO and yung head ng agency. Mr. Chair, allow me to point out what the certification attached to the accomplishment report means for the SDO and the Vice President herself as head of the agency. Meron ba yung slide natin para makita ng ating mga manonood? So, Mr. Chair, itong pinapakita natin ay part ng certification na naka-attach sa mga liquidation reports na na sinasubmit mismo ng SDO at ng ating Vice President. Okay? We have 4 copies from the period of December 21 to 31, 2022, from Feb 6 to March 29, 2023, from April 25 to June 2023, and from July 14 to September 14, 2023, all of which amount to 125 million. So, apat na 125 million po ito na sino-certify po nila, nakapirma po silang dalawa dyan, and may I emphasize on Section B. Expenses were incurred in connection with the agency's intelligence and/or confidential operations and activities with supporting documents attached to the liquidation of confidential funds and for the intelligence funds, documentary evidence of payment kept in sealed envelope in the vault in the office of the SDO. This only means, Mr. Chair, that the signatories of these liquidation or accomplishment reports, which is a sworn document, certify na yung cash advances here amounting to 500 million pesos, representing the confidential funds, were used for the implementation of the OVP initiatives, and as COA has pointed out in the past hearings, they do not verify or determine whether the information in the DEPs, the amount, the signature, name in the receipt, the date sa receipt, are truths, lies, or are reasonable or unreasonable. The only persons who are able to verify kung totoo talaga ang mga acknowledgement receipts na ito, Mr. Chair, ay ang Office of the Vice President, particularly the head of the office, which is the Vice President herself, and the Special Disbursing Officer. With this, Mr. Chair, it's rather very evident that through the certification attached to this, nakikita natin dito, accomplishment reports, the ARs na kino-question kanina are impliedly verified by the Vice President herself and the SDO. Nevertheless, Mr. Chair, naniniwala po ang inyong lingkod na mahalaga na usisain pa rin natin at tingnan ang veracity ng mga acknowledgement receipts na pinresenta nila, and at the end of the day, na kahit ito po ay confidential or intelligence funds man, ito ay pondo pa rin po ng ating pamahalaan intended para sa ating mga kababayan. With this, Mr. Chair, I yield the floor to the next interpellator.
Do you have another COMSEC? Sino pa yung isa?
Kong Hun.
Congressman Jeff Kung-hun, you recognize, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, ayon sa ating last hearing, we have confirmed the following. The Office of the Vice President has requested for confidential funds for at least 2 years. The documents evidencing payment, or the DPEs, are required to be submitted to support the disbursement of confidential funds. The Commission on Audit relies mainly on DPEs, which is the case of OBP, or ARs. Napaka-importante po nito dahil napapatunayan kung saan at kung paano at kung sino ang tumatanggap ng mga payments na galing sa Office of the Vice President. The COA has confirmed that these documents are noted as submitted out of mere compliance, almost to the point of being ministerial. We have confirmed that these DEPs, despite its key roles in ensuring proper receipt of confidential funds and utilization as indicated in accomplishment reports, has been the documents submitted out of mere compliance, perhaps at the cost of its truth and accuracy. Mr. Chair, I would like to manifest that the purpose of this acknowledgement receipt, at least in theory, is to safeguard the use of confidential funds. Paano po natin maipapakita through sa acknowledgement receipts kung ang tao na tumatanggap nito at kung saan ito napunta at ginagastos. Kahit confidential funds po ito, need po natin bantayan kung paano ito nagagastos at kung paano ito nagagamit. However, despite the intent and examination of these acknowledgement receipts submitted in the liquidation of the OVP's confidential funds shows the alarming discrepancies and indications of irregularity. Meron pong pagdududa kung saan at paano ginamit ang confidential fund ng OVP. Mr. Chair, meron po ako ipapakita na acknowledgement receipt dated December 2022. Ito po yung documents in evidencing payment. Nakita po natin na walang nakalagay sa acknowledgement receipt na ito, walang nakalagay na date. Bakit po kaya walang date din na nakalagay dito? Naka-blank po yung date. So this acknowledgement receipt was included with ARs dated December 22 or part of the DEPs of 2022. Based on this acknowledgement receipt, it is the auditors were able to determine whether the money was actually issued in 2022. Napakahirap po patunayan kung talagang 2022 nga po ba ginastos o ginamit itong mga ARs na isinabmit ng Office of the Vice President dahil wala nga po itong date. Ano po ba yung nakapaloob sa acknowledgement receipt na ito? Wala rin po itong period covered. So, ano po ang dahilan kung bakit kailangan may nakalagay na period covered sa isang acknowledgement receipt na ito? Tingin ko po kailangan nating malaman para malaman din natin kung kailan at para saan ito ginamit. Kung wala po itong date sa nakikita ninyo, medyo hindi katanggap-tanggap at talagang nakakapagduda kung saan at paano ginamit yung pera na nakalagay po sa acknowledgement receipt na ito. To illustrate to you, I will show you the acknowledgement receipt in the name of a certain AAS who appears 3 times in the acknowledgement receipt on hand. Nakita po natin, nabali sa dokumentong isinabmit ng OVP na ipinapakita ko po ngayon, a certain AAS may tinanggap po siya na pera sa loob po ng 2 buwan. From December 2022 to February 2023, almost 210,000 ang tinanggap niya. But from December 2022 to July 2023, nakatanggap si AAS ng 300,000. Maring nakakapagtaka po kung paano at para saan ang ginamit na perang ito. Kasi ang nakalagay po dapat is purchase of information. To reiterate, magkaparehas lang ang purpose ng 3 ARs. Kung magkaparehas lang, bakit may varying amount sa disbursement? So, napakarami pong katanungan na kailangan nilang sagutin yung mga taong hindi po nagpunta rito at yung mga tao po na iniimbitahan natin at sinasabpina natin. Hindi po ba nakakapagtaka kung bakit may iba't ibang amounts for the same purpose? Purchase of information. Katulad ni AAS, tumanggap siya ng 60,000 noong December 2022, 150,000 noong February 2023, at 70,000 noong 2023. In another set of ARs, Mr. Chairman, may isa pang tao na by initials ay JOV, which received the confidential funds for 3 different purposes. For the payments of reward, medicine in December 2022, for the payment of supplies in 2023, and the provisions of medical and food aid in 2023. Nakatanggap si JOV ng 920,000 sa loob ng 5 buwan for 3 different purposes: payment of reward of medicine, payment of supplies, and provision of medical and food aid. Ano ang total na natanggap ni JOV base 3 ARs na ipinakita ko sa screen? Ito ay 920,000. Unlike AAS, ang pera na tinanggap ni JOV ay para sa 3 separate purpose: payment of rewards and medicine, payment of supplies, provision of medical and food aid. Marami pong mga katulad ni JOV na tumanggap ng confidential fund na galing sa Office of the Vice President. Nakapagtataka na may isang tao na tumanggap ng confidential fund na twice o thrice para sa iba't ibang purposes. Nakapagtaka din kung saan ito nanggagaling. Ang galing-galing naman ng tao na yon, marami silang businesses na sobrang swak na kinakailangan ng Office of the Vice President. Or baka baka pwede natin mas magandang katanungan is hindi ba kayo nagtataka kung bakit paulit-ulit ang pangalan? Halatang halata na parang ang Office of the Vice President ay naubusan na ng pangalan na ilalagay. Mr. Chair, please allow me to point out to a pattern that we found out in the documents evidencing payment for December of 2022. There is a very real possibility that the confidential fund were released in batches daily na parang routine na ito o robotic pa. Parang scripted ang pag-release ng mga pondong ito. Tignan po natin yung na ifa-flash po natin sa ating screen This shows a pattern that occurs throughout the DEPs in December of 2022. Nakikita po natin na halos pare-parehas po ang amount na ito at talagang grabe po yung kanilang ginawa para sa reward medicine. Nagre-repeat po ito ng nagre-repeat po ito ng December 29 and December 30 and even occurs many more times during this period. Nakikita nyo rin po na never ninyo pinansin itong pattern kahit the same amount, same dates, and several times. Kaya hindi po ba nakakapagduda, lalong-lalo na po sa Commission on Audit, na paulit-ulit po na pare-parehas ang amount, pare-parehas ang nakalagay, lalong-lalo na sa kanilang mga DEPs. Mr. Chair, let us not forget that these confidential funds were spent all in 11 days. This pattern in releasing the confidential funds in batches show exactly how all the 125 million of confidential funds were fully spent. Mr. Chair, we have shown you the importance of the DEPs more than being a required document for the disbursement of confidential funds. And the DEPs, isa sa mga dokumento na dapat meron tayong integridad at dapat nating binabantayan dahil ito ang nagpapatunay sa maayos na paggamit ng confidential funds. Paano natin, how can the integrity of the receipt and the use of confidential fund be safeguarded pag walang maayos na mga nakalagay sa ating mga acknowledgement receipt or pag hindi nababasa ng maayos yung acknowledgement receipt? Mr. Chair, dapat po talaga na humarap na yung mga tao na ating sinusubpina, na ating pinapatawag dito sa na nakadestino o naka-assign sa office ng Vice President. Sana po, Mr. Chair, wag na po nilang pagtakpan ang ating Vice President dahil nakikita naman po natin na marami po talagang irregularidad na nakikita, lalong-lalo na sa kung paano nila ginamit ang kanilang confidential fund ng Department of Education at saka ng Office of the Vice President. Huwag po nilang pagtakpan ang iisang tao lamang. Dapat po ang loyalty nila para po sa interest ng bansa, hindi po sa isang tao lamang. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The next interpellator is Congressman Akop.
Honor, may I be recognized?
Yes, with the indulgence of Congressman Akop, the COMSEC is recognized.
Your Honor, we would like to acknowledge the presence of Senior Deputy Speaker Aurelio Dong Gonzales Jr. from the 3rd District of Pampanga, Deputy Majority Leader Alfred C. De Los Santos from Ang Provinciano Party List, and Congresswoman Micaela Angela B. Swansing from the 1st District of Nueva Ecija. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Kong Akop.
Mr. Chair, may I proceed?
Yes, please proceed, Congressman Akop.
Marami pong salamat. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. And before I proceed with my interpellation proper, Attorney Pua.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Would it be correct that you stated in the previous hearing na only the Vice President and the SDO know where the confidential funds went?
Based on the documents, Your Honor, I would assume so.
Did you state that?
What I was asked, Mr. Chair, I was asked, Your Honor, I think by Representative Castro, if I knew anything about it. And I said na sa totoo, wala po talaga akong kinalaman sa management or operation ng confidential funds. So if I remember correctly, and the transcripts would probably bear me out, tinanong niya, kung hindi ikaw sino? So I said, I would assume the signatories, Your Honor, of the certifications and of the other documents. And she asked me who, so I said the SDO and probably the head of agency.
So yung sagot po ninyo, it's a presumption.
Well, Your Honor, kasi hindi ko po alam kung saan...
Because you
how
answered
it's-
the question under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
And therefore, you stated the name of the Vice President and the Special Dispersing Officer. That they're the only ones who know where the confidential funds went.
That is correct, Your Honor. No?
That is
Because
why I asked
based
you
on the documents, yes.
whether you stated this statement in the last hearing.
Yes, Your Honor. But just to clarify, I mentioned that it was based on the documents, Your Honor, because the documents would point that way.
Kasi kung titingnan ko yung statement po ninyo, eh, kung wala nang ibang nakakalam kung saan napunta yung pondo, ay dadalawang bagay lang ang nangyari. Di ba? Kasi either ibinulsa nung ni VP o ni STO o ginamit sa ibang bagay. Ni VP at saka ni SDO. Hindi po ba?
Your Honor, please, I wasn't...
Hindi, yun po yung sagot
But
ninyo.
I wasn't
That's why-
alluding to that, Your Honor. I
beg your pardon?
I wasn't alluding to that, Your Honor, if I may
No,
beg your
kasi-
indulgence. Opo.
Kowa, correct me if I'm wrong. Di ba? Yung pondo allocated sa office. Tama. Nag-cash advance sila from Land Bank. Tama. Land Bank, nag-cash advance sila doon, dinala sa opisina. Ang makaalam na lang doon ay yung head of office or head of agency at saka yung special disbursing officer. Tama. Di ba ba? At yung special disbursing officer, yun yung mag-allocate kung saan pupunta yung gagastusin yung pondo. Di po ba? Sagutin niyo ako, Kowa. Do you agree with me? Yes. Pakisabi sa mic para marinig po lahat.
With your permission, Your Honor, yes po, Your Honor.
Yes. And therefore, kung yung liquidation or clearing process ay hindi totoo at bogus, ibig sabihin, nagamit yung pera sa ibang bagay. Would you agree with me, Kowa?
Well, based on your statement, Your Honor, and based on which you said that the liquidation or the documents are bogus, so we presume that the funds, no other evidence presented, were illegally disbursed.
Hindi po ba kayo kumbinsido sa mga sagot ninyo at saka sa mga katanungan na aking mga kasama na yung DEPs or documentary evidence of payments or acknowledgement receipts ay puro may diferensya? Di po ba? And therefore, pag yung liquidation instruments, part of your clearing process or liquidation process ay mali-mali na, ay saan napunta yung pera? Tell me. Dalawang bagay lang po. Kasi dami ko na naimbestigan na ganito nung nasa pulis ako eh. Saka sa PCINP. Di ba? Either ibinulsa or ginamit sa iba. Either way, mali. Di po ba? Would you agree, Kowa?
If the liquidation po is bogus,
Kasi hindi naman napunta doon sa totoo eh. Doon sa clearing instruments na binigay. Di ba? Kung naibulsa, masama, ninakaw mo na eh, di ba? Ngayon, kung ginamit sa iba, technical malversation yun. Would you agree with me, Attorney?
that is assuming it was not used as confidential expense po.
Mali na nga yung clearing instrument sa liquidation process eh. Yung mali yung pag-clear at saka pag-liquidate, what is your conclusion?
That the funds were not used as confidential.
Supposed to be used.
As
As it is supposed to be
It's
used.
supposed to be used.
Yes. That is the logical conclusion. Hindi po ba? Would you agree with me, Madam Attorney?
Personal opinion, yes, Mr. Chair.
Ha?
Personal opinion po, Mr. Chair, yes, I would have to agree.
Ewan ko. Pero kasi sa dami na naimbestigahan ko, ganun ang nakikita ko eh. Kayo naman, ang tagal nyo na sa COA, hindi nyo pa rin nakikita yon. Di ba? Kasi if your liquidation or clearing process is wrong, di definitely yung kung saan pinuntan yung pera, hindi po dun sa tama. Could you give me an instance na mali yung liquidation process, tama yung pinuntahan ng pera? Pursuant to your guidelines.
Yun nga po, Mr. Chair, personal opinion, if the confidential funds were not used as it is intended to be used, it's already technical malversation.
Yes, kasi kitang-kita naman na yung paggamit po nila sa pondo, parang nilegalize lang nila by their submission to you, yung DEPs nila, o kaya ARs, or acknowledgement receipts. Di ba? Na mali-mali. Would you agree with me?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. Kasi yun ang nakikita ko na nangyari, process eh. Nag-withdraw sa land bank dahil nandun yung pondo na confidential fund. Dinala sa opisina yung SDO. Hindi ko alam. Kaya nga hinahanap namin yung SDO para tanuhin namin kung saan napunta eh. Paano niya inallocate yung pondo eh. But as it is, yung liquidation instruments ay mali-mali po eh. Kaya sigurado ako, hindi napunta sa tama rin yung pondo. There are only two things na pinuntahan yung pondo. Nagamit sa iba o ibinulsa. Kung ayaw nyo matanggap yun, ako kaya kong tanggapin. Kasi marami na akong dinaanan na investigasyon. Na ganun. Natameme kayo? Ha? Di ba? Could you please tell us? Kasi marami nangyayari ganito eh. Which, I think, you know. Kasi hindi lang naman doon sa OVP yan, tingin ko. Okay? So, pwede po bang malaman? Yun pong mga certification na ginamit po yung security group ni Vice President, tinanggap din po ninyo?
Mr. Chair, hindi po. Yung proof sa rewards ni OVP, hindi po.
Hindi.
Kaya po na-disallow yung payment of rewards.
Sa DepEd?
Sa DepEd po kasi, parang na-deem namin na independent party yung nagbigay ng certification. So,
Pakilapit lang yung...
since na-deem namin na independent na group yung nag-issue ng certifications, we accepted the certifications.
So, tinanggap ninyo?
Opo, Mr.
Yung
Chair.
yung certification galing doon sa office ng Vice President Security Group?
Hindi po. Yun ang hindi po namin tinanggap since parang kasama din po ng OVP po yun eh. Pero yung sa DepEd po kasi, ibang party na po kasi yung nag-issue ng mga certifications.
Ayun yung natanong na nung last hearing
Yes,
yung mga
Mr. Chair.
Philippine Army units
Yes, Mr. Chair.
na nag-conduct ng Youth Leadership Summit.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. But would you agree with me that the office of the Vice President is separate from the office of the VPSG?
Yes, Mr. Chair, but they are the group that is specifically, it's like yung PSG po ni President na specific na naka-assign kay VP po.
Kaya lang. Kaya nga. And would you agree with me also that the office of the security group of the Vice President would have their own funds?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, and therefore would not need the confidential funds coming from the Secretary of the Department of Education and from the Office of the Vice President. Would you agree with me?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. Wala kasi dito yung mga kwan eh. Dapat yun ang tatanungin eh. Now, are you aware na there were 787 acknowledgement receipts where there were no names but there were signatures?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
You're aware of that. And there were 302 ARs that had unreasonable names. Would you agree also?
Unreasonable names, Mr. Chair.
Unreadable.
Unreadable. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Then there were 5 names repeated.
That was not an observation, Mr. Chair. Yung repeated names po, hindi po namin naging
Hindi
observation.
nyo nakita yon. Okay. And insofar as the confidential fund of the Department of Education is concerned, yung location ng where the YLS were conducted did not match locations where information to support this YLS were supposedly bought. Would you agree with that?
Yes, Mr. Chair. May specific areas po yung certification.
Yes. Now, would you also agree that there were identical entries, amount expended, and number of receipts for the second and third quarter of 2023 for entries on provision of medical and food aid?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It's not very unusual naman po. Since
I beg your pardon?
it's not very unusual naman po since pwede naman po talaga mangyari
So usual
na,
yung nangyayari yon.
hindi naman po usual pero hindi naman siya ganun ka-unusual.
O sige. Whether it's usual or unusual, is it in accordance with the joint circular?
Sa joint circular po kasi documentary evidence of payment lang po ang requirement.
Sa pakisagot lang yung tanong, whether usual or unusual, is it in accordance with your joint circular?
Since the document was submitted
You
po,
think they are?
yes po, yes.
So it's your opinion?
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you. May we go to yung kwan, yung acknowledgement receipts or DEPs. Now, we have examined yung DEPs or acknowledgement receipt, which were used to liquidate the confidential funds. And I would like, Mr. Chair, to make the following statements from the examination. May nakita po na mga acknowledgement receipts that all appear to be signed by the same pen. Would you agree with that also, Madam Kawa?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Since either blue or black po yung...
Yes, kaya nga. Makikita po natin ito sa color ng ink.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Which is a very distinct shade of blue na may shades of black. I think it's there, shown. Yan di po ba yung acknowledgement receipts na nasa inyo?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And wala po kayong napansin?
Yung ni-note lang po namin is yung mga iba ang date, yung mga unsigned. Yun po, Mr. Chair.
Ganon.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to manifest that all these acknowledgement receipts are under the names of different persons, pero wala po dyan yung naulit. Dyan po sa 10 na yan. But if we look at it, the names and signatures of different persons appear to be written with the same pen with a distinct ink on different dates. I think this is highly irregular. Bilang ako, isang investigador. Now, Madam Attorney, you confirm that you have received these acknowledgement receipts as part of the submissions of the Office of the Vice President to liquidate their confidential funds?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Okay. Now, would you agree with me that these 10 acknowledgement receipts appear to be written with the same color of ink? Yes?
Like I said, sir, it's either blue or black po kasi yung ink. So,
Gusto ko lang malaman yung sagot po ninyo.
yes, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. And this is a distinct shade of blue na almost black. Parang may gradient po siya. Tama.
I cannot remember.
Kaya nga ikaw,
ng
sabi mo,
Mr.
ang sagot
Chair.
mo, it's either blue or black eh. Kasi parang naglalaro yung ink na ginamit sa blue or black.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Common
Yeah.
naman po yun na nakikita namin either blue or black ang signature.
When you say common, sa lahat po ba ng opisina na inaudit niyo, ganyan?
Either blue or black. Yes, Mr.
Blue or
Chair.
black din? Sa lahat ng opisina ng gobyerno na inaudit ninyo?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Like, kami rin, sir, either blue or black po ang ginagamit namin.
Ha?
Either blue or black din po yung ginagamit namin.
Yeah. And I would like to show kung ano yung ink dun sa pag-imbestiga namin eh. Yan. Yung kulay. It's Prussian blue. Would you confirm that this is the same or very similar color as the ones in the ARs that were submitted to you?
Hindi ko na maalala yung itsura, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Tingnan po natin yung kwan. Yung pinirmahan ni Assistant or ASEC Ortonio. Hindi po ba parehas yung pinakita ko na Prussian blue?
Mukhang parehas, Mr. Chair.
Ha?
Mukha pong parehas.
Parehas. So, it's the same ink used by ASEC Lemuel Ortonio, the Assistant Chief of Staff of the Office of the Vice President. Tama?
Mukha pong pareho, Mr. Chair.
No. Now, Mr. Chair, there had been also observations that there are acknowledgement receipts which bear the same or similar handwriting. Parehas po ang handwriting. May nakita rin po ba kayong ganon, Madam Attorney, na halos parehas ang handwriting doon sa mga ARs?
Hindi naman po kami experts sa handwriting, Mr. Chair.
Hindi naman kailangan ng expert para makita ko minsan yan eh. Comsec, pwede ba ipakita yung kwan? Yung picture ng halos parehas ng kwan? Ng handwriting? Yung AR dated July 27, 2023 and July 25, 2023. Kung pwede ipakita. No problem. Hindi maikwan? Saan ba sila?
Sir, may I be acknowledged while we're waiting for ICTS to fix the technical problem? Your
Yes,
Honor?
COMSEC, you are acknowledged.
Your Honor, we would like to recognize Honorable Julian Jam Baronda, Deputy Majority Leader from the Lone District of Iloilo City, and Honorable Crispin Diego Ping Remulla, Vice Chairperson from the 7th District of Cavite, Your Honors.
Attorney, bago natin, kasi nagkakaroon ng technical problem, pwede bang magtanong din ako kasi hindi ako naliliwanagan dito sa, yung, there is a deficiency, I think, that you have noted, that the payment of rewards to informers must be supported with documents evidencing the success of the information gathering and or surveillance activities on account of the information given by the informer. Ito
Yes.
po yung ginamit dun sa yung YSL.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Tama?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ano po yung ang aking pagkaintindi rito, correct me if I'm wrong, na dapat may makuha ng information na ginamit yung confidential fund and that an activity was conducted because of that information and that information gathering and that activity were successful.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Tama po ba yung
Tama po.
pagkaintindi ko?
Tama pa, Mr.
Now,
Chair.
if I may ask, how would you know or how would you be able to find out na merong information na nakuha muna before they have conducted their YSL?
Wala po kaming information on that. So, either may separate sila as part nung purchase of information and then separate yung rewards or nabayaran na siya same with rewards.
Pero requirement po nyo yun, di ba? Requirement na circular.
Kaya po yung yung
Because
additional requirement.
that is precisely the reason why you will justify the buying of information,
Yes,
which would
Mr.
lead
Chair.
to a successful event or operation.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Di po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Kasi ginagawa rin namin nung nasa servisyo ako yun eh. I know that.
Yes, Mr.
Pero
Chair.
parang pagkaintindi ko sa inyong clearing instruments, parang hindi, just because there was a certification that the YSL, YLS pala, were successful, tama na yun. Parang gano'n ang pagkaintindi ko. Samantalang, nung kami ang nasa serbisyo, ang requirement is that ipapakita namin na may information kaming binayaran and because of that information, an operation was conducted and it was successful. Hindi ba dapat gano'n?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Pero in the case of the confidential fund of the OVP and the DepEd, hindi ko nakikita yon.
Yun nga po kaya ni-require namin sila mag-submit ng additional documents. And yung nag-review po, naging sufficient na po yung certification from yung 5 certifications.
And that is enough to show na tama po yung ginawa nila just because nag-submit sila ng certification that YLS was conducted and it was successful. Di ba ang concept dapat nun is you use confidential fund to buy information and because of that information bought or acquired, you conduct an operation
Yes,
and
Mr.
that
Chair.
operation should turn successful.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ganun po yung requirement sa amin nung nasa servisyo kami. Intelligence fund.
Yes, Mr.
Basically, they are the same.
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
So, bakit po naniwala kayo sa certification lang na successful yung pag-conduct ng YSL?
Since yan nga po, independent na agency po yung nagbigay ng certification. And sabi naman po niya na because of the YLS nga wala pong na-influence na mga bata, we deemed it successful. Compared po dun sa yung sabi niyo po kanina na yung sa VP SPG group, Ang sinabit lang po nila was a listing of the activities of the Vice President, which is wala naman pong information kung may may successful activity ba na nagawa because of the information they have gathered.
Yun yung sa security
Sa-
group.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And is there any way that you will determine that the confidential fund of the OVP and DepEd, these funds were used sa activity ng ng VPS security group? Kasi they have their own funds. That was the first question I asked you a while ago.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
That the Presidential Security Group and part of that is the Vice President Security Group, may pondo po sila naka-allocate talaga.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Oh, but they were not able to show, if I will appraise yung documents, they were not able to show that confidential funds of the OVP and the DepEd were used in such activities.
Yes,
Can you
Mr.
see that they were used?
No, Mr. Chair. Kaya nga po, hindi naman siya na-consider since yung list of activities lang po ang sinubmit nila, which is, alam nila since sila naman po yung kasama ni VP sa mga activities na yun.
But anyway, hindi pa rin yata tapos page. Ready na? Pakishow nga yung yung acknowledgement receipts dated July 27, tsaka July 25, 2023. Wala pa rin. Ipakita mo na lang sa kanya. Madam Attorney, papakita ko na lang sa iyo yung observation namin. Yan lang, tingnan mo lang yung receipt na yan. Because I will ask questions. Okay? Pwede. Did you notice na isa lang ang gumawa nito?
Mr. Chair, sorry, tinignan
yun
ko
lang
lang.
sinasabi ko Kaya tingnan mo. You observe it properly. Ayan na. Okay na. Ayan. Nakita mo?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Would you confirm that these were submitted to your office?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Now, if you observe, kindly observe the letter J. Tama po ba na halos parehas yung letter J dyan?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Tama rin po ba na parehas din yung color ng ink na ginamit at saka yung lapad po ng pagkasulat?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Would you be able to state, Madam Attorney, na these two receipts were written by the same person?
Probably, Mr. Chair.
Probably. Pero these are two different acknowledgement receipts indicating different dates
Yes,
and
Mr. Chair.
indicating different payees. How can that be?
Pwede naman pong either of those two persons wrote the same and then someone else
So that is
signed.
regular? No.
I'm not saying regular po, pero it
Hindi
could
nga,
happen. po.
tinatanong ko nga is, nagkakaroon tayo ng observation. Now,
Yes, Mr.
do you think this is regular? No.
No.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, makikita po natin dito na there are certain things na irregular insofar as the DEPs or acknowledgement receipts submitted by the two offices doon po sa COA. Now, I would like to point, again, another observation which we have made. This time, an acknowledgement receipt with the name KV that repeats in OVP and DepEd acknowledgement receipts. Kindly show yung OVP at saka DepEd acknowledgement receipts. O, parehas lang yan. Nandun sa OVP, nandun pa sa DepEd. Hindi nyo napansin ito.
Hindi po, Mr. Chair, since na-audit siya ng magkaibang time.
Okay. Pero would you confirm that the two ARs parehas ang pangalan na KV?
Hindi ko na maalala yung exact document, Mr. Chair.
Sige, yeah, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Again, Mr. Chair, pwede po bang ipakita natin yung last AR dated 12/30/2022? Sinabit din pa ito sa inyo?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ha?
Yes.
Yes.
Basta lahat po ng sinubmit namin po, Mr. Chair, sa inyo. Galing sa amin po.
Oh, sige. Yun ang binigay nyo sa committee.
Yes, Mr.
Tama,
Chair.
nabasa namin.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. The name would read, tama po ba? Mary Grace Piatos?
Piati?
Ha?
Piati?
Piatos.
Piati?
Ang pagkabasa ko, Piatos eh.
Y po yung last?
Y, hindi S.
May ano po siya eh.
Ayun o, tingnan mo.
Y po. Since masyado nang mababa yung tail.
Okay. Now, sa tingin mo, totoong tao yan? What's your opinion?
It could be a person.
Could be a person. Pero, would you know na merong restaurant na Mary Grace ang pangalan?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Cafe
At meron
Mary
ding
Grace.
Piatos na brown ng potato chips?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Would you know that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Anyway,
It's
at
Piati.
least alam mo rin pala mga yon. Now, Mr. Chair, I would just like to repeat what I've said a while ago, na everything na tinanong ng aking mga kasamahan tungkol sa documentary evidence of payments or acknowledgement receipts, ay karamihan po ay hindi po totoo. And therefore, if hindi po totoo, hindi natin malalaman kung saan talaga napunta yung pondo, yung confidential fund, until and unless we would be able to grill yung dalawang SDOs. The SDO of the Office of the Vice President and the SDO of the Department of Education. Si Madam Acosta yata, at saka yung isa. So, we can only surmise, Mr. Chair, na yung pondo, dalawa lang ang pupuntahan nun eh. Kagaya ng sabi ko, sa bulsa or nagamit po sa ibang bagay. Both hindi po tama. Kasi kung ginamit sa ibang bagay, and I think the lawyers of COA would agree with me that there's technical malversation. Kasi iba ang purpose ng pondo, ginamit sa iba. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marami pong salamat sa opportunity.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Acop. The Chair would like to recognize the Deputy Speaker, J.J. Suarez.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Kanina ho ay pinakikinggan ko po yung mga katanungan ng ating mga kasamahan dito sa committee. Kasama na rin po yung mga tanong ni Congressman Romy Acop. At nakakapagbalik tanaw po tayo ng kaunti. At naalala ko po yung panahon na nagkakaroon ng Senate hearing sa Napoles na parang ganito at ganito din yung mga lumalabas na maraming mga acknowledgement receipts na di umano fabricated, di umano gawa-gawa, at parang hindi po maipaliwanag kung paano po ito tumutugma base po doon sa pondong nailaan para sa kanya. Gusto ko lang po tanungin yung COA, base po doon sa ilang mga acknowledgement receipts na ipinakita sa atin ng ating mga kasamahang mambabatas, meron po kami napansin doon na parang 200 na acknowledgement receipts na signature lang, walang pangalan. Ito po ba ay pumapasa sa qualifications ng Commission on Audit?
For now, sir, ina-accept namin yung signature lang. Although, from here onwards, siguro po, require namin na name at least name and signature.
Because I think we really have to look into this matter strictly. Kasi pag sinabi mong acknowledgement receipt, tumatanggap ka.
Yes,
Meron kang tinatanggap na pera, goods, or services from government.
yes.
And how can you substantiate if that person in that acknowledgement receipt exists kung signature lang? So, is there any COA memorandum or policy when it comes to acknowledgement receipt guidelines?
For now, since ina-accept po namin yung signatures lang, wala po kaming ibang basis kundi yung sa joint circular. But we will try to parang supplemental na po yung mga ibang COA issuances.
No, my
I will-
question, ma'am, is there a policy by COA when it comes to requirements of acknowledgement receipts? What are the requirements in that paper so that COA can deem them unacceptable?
May I be permitted to speak, Your Honor?
Yes, Ms. Sofia Gemora, you're recognized by the Chair.
Thank you, Your Honor. As to the regular audit, I'm very aware with the confidential fund because it has a joint circular, as a parameter. So in COA, pardon me, or I cannot recall the memorandum, but we have this rule that we can reimbursable expense, what we call RER receipt. Reimbursable expense receipt is acceptable up to 1,000 pesos and below. Other than that, of course, we need, as it is now, an invoice. And if any, signature, it would, of course, accompany the full name of the recipient or those that signed on the particular receipt.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, that's the memo that I was pointing out to Ms. Remora. Meron po talaga kasi yun sa COA na kinikailangan full name ang nakasulat doon. At nabasa ko na rin po yun. Kaya nga po nakakapagtaka dito po sa 612 million pesos where acknowledgement receipts were submitted by the Office of the Vice President and by the DepEd Secretary then, ang dami po talagang red flags na nakita po ng committee. So unang-una ho, signature lang. Pangalawa ho, merong migrant beneficiaries. When I say migrant beneficiaries, they received funds from the confidential funds of the DepEd, and they receive funds from the confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President. Other than that, there are also instances where individuals received funds many times, numerous times, from the confidential funds. Other than that, may instances din po na nakita namin na yung mga safe house na lang po na binanggit ni Chairman, parang hindi po namin masyadong maunawaan kung paano ka gagastos ng 15 million pesos per quarter on safe houses under the Office of the Vice President. Bukod pa po doon, yung safe houses na binabayaran din under Secretary of Education. So of course, documentary requirements are submitted to you. But you know, this, Mr. Chair, raised a lot of questions and red flags from my point of view. Kaya nga po, nakakalungkot na wala po dito yung mga SDO at saka si Ms. Lopez na nalaman po pala natin ay umalis po kagabi papuntang Los Angeles, California, because these are questions that they should actually be answering. Am I right, Yusek Poab? These are questions that they should be answering.
Based on the documents, Your Honor.
Based on the documents, correct, because they're the signatories to the documents. So with that being said, siguro para sa COA, tulungan nyo na lang kami. I think we need to come up with better guidelines, especially when it comes to requirements of acknowledgement receipts, so that ito pong mga pagmamagic na nangyayari ay hindi po mangyari. Dahil ang pinag-uusapan po natin dito ay pera ng mamamayan. Hindi naman to pera ng isang tao. Pera to ng Pilipino na dapat po natin inaalagaan.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Congressman Abante, you're recognized.
Gusto kong malaman kung tapos ng investigasyon ng COA dito sa Notice of Disallowances na inyong binigay sa Office ng Vice President. Tapos na po ba lahat ng investigasyon?
Mr. Chair, dun sa Notice of Disallowance, inaantay pa po namin kung mag-a-appeal sila. So, hindi pa po final. Yung iba pong mga audit observation memoranda na issued po nila, nag-submit na po sila ng compliance and yun po yung mga pinag-aaralan po namin ngayon.
Okay. So, hindi pa kayo tapos, ano po?
No, Mr. Chair.
Ilang porsyento na po ang natapos nyo? For example, like, so mayroon bang 50% or 60% or 70%?
Considering po na gusto nyo magpaka-strict kami today, may mga nire-re-audit po kami and hindi pa po namin ma-issue yung next, which is yung notice of suspension.
Okay. So, hindi nyo maaaring masabi kung ilang porsyento na ho, lahat?
Mr. Chair, parang tatlong tao po yung, tatlong ibang team members yung iba-ibang AOM. So, hindi ko po masabi ngayon yung exact na, yung status na po ng...
Sa mga natapos po ninyo, Mr. Chair, meron ba kayong nakitang improper disbursement o mga violations po ng disbursement ng confidential fund?
Mr. Chair, hindi ko pa po nare-review yung audit. So, hindi ko pa po masabi ngayon, Mr. Chair. Nasa auditors pa po.
Meron pa ho bang ibang pondo na aside from the confidential fund na inyo pong iniimbestigahan?
Sa ICFAO po, confidential and intelligence fund lang po kami.
Ayun lang po ang inyo
Yes,
iniimbestigahan?
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yung
Yun lang po
buong
ang...
bansa po.
Oo. Nakikita ko nga, ikaw yung sa intelligence and confidential fund ka lang muna, no?
Yes, Mr.
So meron bang iba dito na kasama natin sa COA na iniimbestigahan pa ang ibang mga pondo ng Office of the Vice President, maliban sa Intelligence and Confidential Fund?
Your Honor, if I may, we have the regular audit team, which we are representing here. Regular audit team for the Office of the Vice President. Our team is here.
So, therefore, Mr. Chair, when you speak of the regular budget of the Vice President, so are you able, meron ba kayong in-issue? Did you issue any disallowances on some of the regular funding of the Vice President or no?
May I recognize, Mr. Chair?
Yes,
For the
Fahad,
audit
you're
of
recognized.
CY, calendar year 2023, we have not yet issued, or we do not issue any disallowances po.
Chairman,
Yes, Congressman Paduano.
in relation to the query asked by Vice Chair Abante, gusto ko na pong linawin COA. Kasi ang tanong ni Chairman Abante refers to, and your answer, I think now, if I'm right, refers to other items. Kasi tapos na kayo doon sa notice of disallowance, di ba?
Yes, Mr.
Tapos na kayo doon.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Sagot mo kanina, question of notice of suspension, at saka, magkaiba yun.
Yes, Mr.
Ibang items yun. Linawin na natin, but
yung
the
ibang-
subject, sandali po, let me finish first. But the subject matter of this investigation refers to the notice of disallowances that you issued. Di ba? Magkaiba yan, boss. Tapos na sila. Tapos na sila dito. They're waiting for the reply within 6 months.
Appeal po, Mr. Chair.
And the deadline will be on?
February 2024.
Oh, yun. Again, Mr.
February
Chair,
5.
I have pointed this out during the previous hearing. Pag EUM kasi, okay, you issue an EUM for the Confidential and Intelligence Fund for the Office of the Vice President. Nag-issue kayo ng EUM and they're allowed
15 days to
15
answer.
days. After 15 days, you validate the reply, then you issued a notice of disallowance.
Notice of suspension.
Notice of suspension if continuing.
Yes,
Tama,
yes.
di ba? Now, then after that, you issue a notice of disallowance.
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
now, kaya ang sagot dapat doon sa tanong ni Chairman Abante, tapos na kayo.
As to yung ND po, Mr.
Kaya
Chair.
nga Kaya nga kasi ang subject matter dito is all about the notice of disallowance. And we will talk about it again. If somebody will file a resolution to further investigate on the point that you have raised with regards to the 3 items that is not yet final.
Opo.
Yung yung audit nyo, di ba?
Opo.
With regards to Confidential and Intelligence Fund.
Yes,
Tama.
Mr. Chair. Yes,
So
Mr.
malinaw
Chair.
po yun. That's why in aid of legislation with regards to this investigation, Mr. Chairman, again, I will just like to reiterate, yung question of the timetable given to the agency with regards to the notice of disallowance is too long. Sabi nga nila, justice delayed, justice denied. Why it will take 6 months? Sige nga, bakit 6 months? Because they have already submitted all the necessary documents. And it turned out, in your investigation, in your audit, lumalabas na may mga problema. That's why you issue a notice of disallowance. Diba? Kaya Mr. Chairman, I hope question of the charter or MCs, no? Or even a bill or a law should be passed with regard to confidential and intelligence fund, Mr. Chairman, should be filed and passed by this Congress. Kasi, kaya nga ang question of, question daw ng proprietedness of this investigation, sa case lang po ng Confidential Intelligence Fund, we have to file a bill and pass a law with regards to it so that it cannot be abused anymore. And only those agencies of government that will be given such fund. And second is question of the COA, the mandate of COA. It should not be 6 months after issuing a notice of disallowance. It should be put as part of the provision of the charter or the mandate of COA, Mr. Chairman. Well, in fact, I will discuss later. Siguro nakapagandaan nyo na yung Memorandum Circular 97-002 in relation to the mandate of BTR, in relation to special cash advancement, in relation to SDOs. Yun yung mga bagay na dapat we have to legislate laws. Kasi kahit yung bonding law natin, napakatagal na yun. Di ba? And memorandum circulars lang ang pinapalabas natin. Well, in fact, may issue pa doon sa SALN. And I will discuss it later. But again, Mr. Chairman, just to point it out and for the record, question of notice of disallowance with regards to the confidential fund being tackled in this hearing was already settled. The question now is yung 6 months. Tama po? And you just wait. Because we have, again, if somebody will stand to deliver a privilege speech or file a resolution with regards to the continuing audit being made by your department, doon sa confidential intelligence fund, and that's the time we will discuss again the 3 items you have mentioned. Tama?
Tama po, Mr. Chair. Na-confuse lang po ako kasi for the past how many hearings, ini-include po sila kasi yung nagtatanong tungkol dun sa subsequent AOMs. Kaya po, yun po yung nasabi ko.
And we cannot discuss it because the germane of this, of the privilege speech of the Honorable Valeriano is all about the documents you have submitted, the notice of disallowance. Tama?
Hindi lang po yun yung pinasubmit sa amin, Mr. Chair. Even 2023 po, pinasubmit sa amin.
But is it part of now the committee, the COA audit report that you have submitted? It is part of the notice of disallowance that being issued by COA?
It's a different period
Oh,
po.
kaya nga eh. Kaya ang sinasabi ko, we will discuss lang muna with regards to the notice of disallowance.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Which is, mamaya, magtatanong din ako dyan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Congressman Abante, you're recognized.
With the query of Congressman Paduano and your answer of being able to finish all the investigations, and you said that medyo na-confuse ka lamang, di ba? So, ibig sabihin, you're telling it to us now with finality that all of the investigations for the confidential intelligence fund of the Vice President is already finished. That's what you're saying?
No, Mr. Chair. Yung 2022 lang po, ang ND, yun na po yung last na touch ng ICFAO po. Yung 2023 po ng OVP at 2023 ng DepEd, yun po yung ongoing ang audit.
So meron pong ongoing na investigation on that.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Kaya po
Okay.
sabi po ni Mr. Chair na yung ND lang po ang i-discuss. Kasi yung iba po, sabi po niya, ongoing pa po yung audit.
So you're giving that 6 months, no? The finished investigation and the ongoing investigation, 6 months, ganun po ba?
No, Mr. Chair. Yung 6 months is for the notice of disallowance po. Which is nasa rules po namin.
Mr. Chairman, 6 months for the office of the Vice President to comply and answer that notice of
Comply.
disallowance.
Oo.
And then, commission proper na.
To
commission
appeal po.
Sorry?
To appeal po, yung proper term.
Kaya nga,
to
yung appeal, di ba?
Opo.
Then the commission proper after 6 months
They
will
will
decide.
rule on it po.
Pero Mr. Chair, ang sinabi niya kanina, natapos na yung 2022, di ba?
Yun po
Ang
yung subject
ongoing
ng
ngayon
ND.
is 2023 and 2024.
Wala pong 2020.
At 124. So therefore, ano yung sinasabi niyong 6 months na notice of disallowances na kino-comply dapat ng Vice President?
Yung confidential funds po ng 2022 ng OVP, umabot na po siya sa notice of disallowance. So from the time that we issued the notice of disallowance, they have 6 months po to file their appeal with the commission proper ng COA. Yung iba pong dinidiscuss natin pertains to confidential funds ng 2023 po, hindi pa po yon notice of disallowance. Na AOM pa lang po siya, kaya hindi pa po siya comparable dun sa ND ng 2022 na subject to appeal na po.
Mr. Chair, Congressman Acop made a statement kanina about cash advances that was made. Ano? So, let me ask, ilang cash advances yon na ginawa nila?
Apat po sa Office of the Vice President and 3 po sa DepEd.
And all of those are deposited sa Land Bank, correct?
Yes po, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Land Bank, did you allow cash advances? Do you allow cash advances?
Sino po ang sasagot sa Land Bank?
Is that one of the rules? Do you allow cash advances?
AVP, Ampo Sano, you are recognized.
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized, please?
Yes, Attorney Rafael Yap, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to apologize, but we'd like to manifest that we cannot answer the question right now because we received the invite to attend today's hearing after 4 p.m. yesterday. So we beg the committee's indulgence to allow us to provide the info once we collate and cleared po sa aming office.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for Land Bank to submit to us all the informations on the cash advances made by the Office of the Vice President. Can you please do that, Mr. Chair?
So we will provide, Mr. Chair, we will provide the info after once cleared na po sa aming office po.
But once again, Mr. Chair, my question was not actually answered. My question is, do you allow cash advances?
Chairman.
Congressman Paduano.
Mr. Chairman, of course, cash advancement, cash advancement for the OBP will not be a subject of decision for the Land Bank. But siguro ang tanong is, do you allow check encashments? Do you allow? It's just a matter of policy. Do you allow?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes. Yung check encashment. But cash advances, of
Not
course,
cash advances.
no, check encashments. So you allow?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Chairman? Anyway, may mga tanong pa ako kasi ang susunod si Kong Maika pa.
Mika Swansing. The next interpellator is Congresswoman Mika Swansing, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, if okay lang, with the indulgence of Kong Mika, I have a few related questions dun sa mga nabanggit din ng iba nating kasama.
Okay. Okay po sa inyo, Congresswoman?
That's okay, Mr. Chair, because my interpellation will be in a very different topic po.
Okay. Yes, the chair recognizes Congressman Manuel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kong Mika. Mr. Chair, sa COA din po address yung mga tanong ko dahil ilang beses na na-mention yung pag-justify ng paggamit ng confidential funds through payment for purchase of information aside sa iba pang mga binanggit na dahilan kung saan daw ginastos. Mr. Chair, yung purchase of information, isa din siya dun sa mga lumitaw na may maraming mga acknowledgement receipts na kaduda-duda actually. Kaya Mr. Chair, ang tanong ko po sa COA, nung binanggit po ng OVP tsaka ng DepEd na may mga pinagamitan, may mga taong binayaran in exchange for the information that they provided di umano sa mga ahensya na ito. Mr. Chair, usually anong mga aktibidad po ito? Maliban doon sa na-mention na yung mga Youth Leadership Summit, para daw mangyari yun, ganyan. Ano pa yung ibang mga tipo ng aktibidad under OVP or DepEd?
Mr.
Attorney Camora, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, yung kung ano po yung nasa accomplishment report nila, yun po yung activities na pinagkakagastosan nila nung pondo po.
So, ibig sabihin, Mr. Chair, kasi yung sa OVP, for 2022, ito yung parang pahabol na nagastos in 11 days ng confidential funds. Ang activities po na ng OVP ay meron daw mga outreach program, merong mga pamahagi ng mga Christmas gifts, ganyan. Bahagi din po ba yon ng mga na-site na para maging successful ang mga yon, di umano, ay kinailangan ng impormasyon, kaya gumamit ng confidential funds?
Pag sa purchase of information, Mr. Chair, hindi po required kasi yung evidence of success. Required siya pag sa payment ng rewards kasi it presupposes na there could be a separate payment for the purchase of information and then separate po ulit yung reward for the success because of that information purchase.
Okay, so given that, Mr. Chair, so kung doon tayo particular sa purchase of information, yan, ano-ano pong mga aktibidad yung na-site ng OVP man or ng DepEd na kung saan kinailangan nilang gumastos for purchase of information using confidential funds?
Mr. Chair, marami po yung sinubmit ng BPSPG na list of activities ng information. And I think
Sige, Mr. Chair, like ano na lang pong mga tipo ng activity, kahit hindi po ma-enumerate, pero mabanggit po ano-ano yung mga kinds of activities na iyon.
like mga specific activities po ito, Mr. Chair, like for example, Nights of Rizal Supreme Council noong December 15, consultation with Barangay Chairman ng Maynila ng December 17, and then
Sorry, Mr. Chair, pwede po paulit para lang po mas malinaw. Ano po yung una tsaka yung pangalawang nabanggit?
Yung una po, unahin ko na lang po dito based sa listahan. December 13, Department of Education, 2022 Partners Appreciation Night in Mandaluyong. And then December 15, Knights of Rizal Supreme Council, 60th Year of Institute in Baguio City, Youth Campaign on Patriotism. And then December 17, marami po itong activities, mga Christmas activities sa Tondo, consultation with Barangay Chairman ng Maynila, in Manila, pasasalamat and update meeting with Barangay Batasan Hills, Quezon City, mga halos ganito
Okay.
po. And then coordination meeting with Task Force Davao in Davao City, and then Christmas activity with SPED students in Davao City. Mga ganitong nature po.
Okay. Mr. Chair, how about yung 2023 for OVP?
At 2023, Mr. Chair, ongoing pa po yung audit, so hindi ko pa po nakita yung list ng activities po nila.
Okay. Mr. Chair, how about 2023 DepEd? Liban dun sa mga Youth Leadership Summit.
Yung sa Youth Leadership Summit, yung sa 5 certifications po yun. Pero hindi po yun yung activity ng DepEd.
Precisely, Mr. Chair, kaya gusto nating malaman, maliban doon, kasi lumitaw na dito sa committee na sinight yun ng DepEd, pero i-dispute din pala ng Philippine Army na gumastos yung DepEd for that. So, meron bang ibang mga DepEd activities na yun yung sinasite pa ng DepEd na ibang pinagamitan ng kanilang confidential funds?
Ito po yung based on their acknowledgement receipts, meron po silang abuse prevention and control within schools, anti-extremism / terrorism programs, anti-illegal activities operations, counterinsurgency. Yun po. And then under each activity, yun na po yung payment of rewards, payment of information. Yun po yung content nung acknowledgement receipts nila and yung accomplishment report po.
Tapos meron din pong mga naka-attach na acknowledgement receipts para dun sa purchase of information para sa mga yon.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mr. Chair, dun sa purchase of information, kasi bago pa man nag-grant ng confidential funds sa DepEd at sa OVP, edi nag-grant na sa iba pang mga ahensya. Tapos kapag purchase of information, edi parang wala namang niyang isang rate lang. So, Mr. Chair, usually, pag nakakarating na sa COA yung mga acknowledgement receipts or kung ano mang ebidensya, ano po ba yung range usually kapag merong mga nagpapasa ng ganong mga like proof na ginastos daw for purchase of information? Ano po yung kadalasang range kapag purchase of information yung pinagkagastusan?
Mr. Chair, iba-iba po kasi depende sa agency and depende sa budget nila.
So, Mr. Chair,
Wala pong definite na masabi na this range to this range.
sige. So, kapag ganun, Mr. Chair, pwede din siya maging discretionary kasi ibig sabihin kung ano yung tansya ng mga officials na yun yung amount na necessary para ma-entice isang tao to provide information.
Part po nung cash advance na documents na sinasubmit nila is a physical and financial plan. So somehow dun sa PFP na breakdown na po doon kung ano yung sa tingin nila pupuntahan nung pondo po.
Okay.
So yun yung plan. And then later on, yung accomplishment report is yung actual kung saan po nila na-spend yung pondo.
So yung plan, chine-check yun ng COA bago aprobahan na, sige, i-grant yung confidential funds for that agency.
Yes po. Sa cash advance po.
Okay. Thank you po dun sa mga sagot, Mr. Chair. Kasi kung ganun nga yung lumilitaw na parang madali pa lang mag-imbento ng proof of payment. Lalo na based dun sa mga pinakita kanina, meron pa mga visual na pagpapakita no, sa ating mga kababayan na kung merong kahit sinong opisyal, lalo na kapag nasa matataas talaga ng mga antas, kung dumating sa punto na gustong gamitin yung pera ng bayan para sa sariling interes o sa mga masasamang balak, ay madali talagang malusutan yung current na systems na meron tayo na supposedly ay dapat nga lalo kung nagbibigay ng confidential funds, ang assumption dyan ay merong kumpiyansa or confidence dun sa kung kanino o saang ahensya nagagrant ng pera. Pero it seems na lalo pa kung purchase information, yung isang madalas na isite, Mr. Chair, ay malaki yung room for discretion para magsabi lang halimbawa na, okay, ganitong amount, bibigay ko sa ganitong tao kasi nagbigay siya ng information. Pero hindi rin, wala tayong sapat na batayan para masabi na naging effective na accomplish ng ganong mga purchase of information, yung kanilang intent. And so, to wrap up, Mr. Chair, lalo na I can really recall na noong 2022, doon pa lang nung formally na bahagi ng budget proposal ng OVP tsaka DepEd, yung confidential funds, ay ginagamit pa actually yung bahagi ng ating constituency, mga kabataan at mga bata, para i-protect di umano yung kanilang interest, i-defend yung kanilang welfare, protektahan daw sila mula sa mga gumagamit ng droga, child abusers, child exploiters. Pero as it seems, Mr. Chair, I don't think merong mga members ng committee who are actually convinced na naprotektahan natin yung mga bata at mga kabataan dahil sa pag-grant ng confidential funds both sa OVP at sa DepEd. So, I really hope na maliban sa mapigilan na natin yung ganitong abuso sa confidential funds, yung mga hindi rin talaga nagpakita na katiwa-tiwala sila, no, sa paggamit ng pondo, dapat hindi na natin mahayaan na magkaroon ulit sila ng access sa ganitong pondo, lalo na pera ito ng ating mga kapwa Pilipino, pinaghirapan, nagbabayad ng buwis para sa pinagbabudgetan ng Kongreso. Yun lang, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Congressman Manuel. The next interpolator is Congresswoman Mika Swansing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Congressman Zia.
with the indulgence of Congresswoman Swansing, with the permission, of course, of my lead colleague, I'd just like to make a manifestation, a quick manifestation, Mr. Chair. Would that
What
be-
is your manifestation?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, well, apparently, I shared the disappointment of some of the members here. I, for one, want to ask questions, no, to certain individuals, invitees who apparently are not around. So I noticed we're hitting a roadblocks here, no, by their consistent refusal to attend these committee hearings. But then again, Mr. Chair, may I request perhaps to the chairman, I believe we have already sent an invitation to the DBM. Yes, and the questions that I have, Mr. Chair, is on not only on the utilization of the confidential funds, but as well as the manner by which these are being requested from DBM, how it was requested, when it was requested, Mr. Chair. So I believe, Mr. Chair, if with the indulgence of this committee, that I would also like to reiterate the invitation that we have sent already to DBM, particularly, Mr. Chair, on the Bureau on Budget Management, that's DASI, because I noticed the request from the OVP has been made through this office, and the correspondence between the OVP and the DBM is also between the Office of the Budget Management Bureau, DASI, and as well as the budget officer of the OVP. So if I may request, Mr. Chair, that by next time, we also send an invitation on this particular bureau under the office of under the Department of Budget and Management, so that for this humble representation, should there be any non-attendance again of the individuals that we are requiring them to attend in the next committee hearing, at least I have somebody to ask for clarification, Mr. Chair. So again, that would be my simple manifestation. I'd just like to put that on record, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Adjong. The COMSEC, please take note of the manifestation of Congressman Adjong.
Noted,
Yes.
Your Honor.
Congressman Mika, please proceed to your interpellation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, with the indulgence of the chairman, I would like to move to a different topic. So throughout the hearing, we've been talking about the confidential funds and how the OVP has dispersed the confidential funds. But with the indulgence of the chairman, I would like to move to looking into the regular funds and the disbursement of the regular funds of the Office of the Vice President.
Please
Mr.
proceed.
Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if I may I request the COMSEC to please flash some slides. I prepared some slides to illustrate the figures in terms of the pattern of expenditure of the Office of the Vice President from the years 2021 to year 2025 as proposed in the National Expenditure Program. Mr. Chair, I would like to highlight a couple of things on this slide. Before I start, I would like to put some caveats. I was able to put figures in 2021 and 2022 based on the COA annual audit report. So these are reflective already, Mr. Chair, of the actual expenditures. For the years 2023 and 2024, we are still waiting for COA to release the annual audit reports. So I based the approximate of the expenditure on the amounts on the GAA, or the General Appropriations Act. And then for 2025, Mr. Chair, I based it off the proposal of the Office of the Vice President for the budget as reflected in the NEP, or the National Expenditure Program, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, before I proceed, I would like to pose a question to COA. COA, nagawa niyo na po ba yung annual audit report ng OVP for the year 2023? Kasi as per checking po, wala pa pong naka-upload sa COA website for 2023.
Ms. Sofia Gemora, you are recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. As to the publication for the 2023 annual audit reports, not only for the OVP but for all of the COA audit reports, duly transmitted to respective auditees or management. Our chair, in relation to the General Appropriations Act that was released for 2024, issued a memorandum that publication of the COA audit reports duly transmitted to the audited agencies will be uploaded by December 1 onwards, which publication will include the AAPC or the status of action taken by the management on the audit observations therein or in the audit reports, and as well as the APMT, which concretize the validation or a report validating the action taken of the management on the audit observations on that year or on 2023 annual audit reports, ma'am. Your Honor.
Noted on that, Mr. Chair. In the absence of the COA report duly published by COA, Mr. Chair, we will stick for now to the values indicated in the GAA for the year 2023 and 2024. Mr. Chair, please allow me to make general comments on the patterns that I've seen from the year 2021 to 2025. Dalawa po siguro yung gusto ko pong puntuhin dito po sa ating obserbasyon. Yung una po, kumpara po sa amount na nagastos ng Office of the Vice President ng taong 2021 at 2022, makikita po natin na mas malaki po o di hamak na mas malaki yung expenditure po ng Office of the Vice President para po sa mga kategorya na ating pong inilatag dito po sa ating slide. Pangalawa, Mr. Chair, napakalaki po nung within across the different years po, napakalaki nung pagtaas noong expenditure ng Office of the Vice President para po sa iba't ibang mga kategorya. So, Mr. Chair, I would like to highlight two observations. First, the expenditures seem to be a lot higher from the years 2023 and as proposed in 2025 as compared to the previous expenditures before 2022. And number two, there's the jump across the different years seems to be very, very substantial for the different categories highlighted, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, iisa-isahin ko po yung iba't ibang mga kategorya para po atin pong mahimay at mailatag yung ating pong mga obserbasyon. Yung una po, Mr. Chair, ay patungkol po sa travel expenses o traveling expenses ng Office of the Vice President. Makikita po natin dito na kung atin pong titignan yung notes to financial statements ng COA, ay dalawa po yung pwedeng maging kategorya para sa traveling expenses, local and foreign travel. Hindi po pa natin alam sa kasalukuyan yung breakdown nitong mga amounts na ito kasi hinihintay po natin yung COA audit report. Pero dito pa lang, Mr. Chair, makikita po natin na parang ang taas. Para po sa taong 2023, mula po sa 20 million ng taong 2022 at 10 million lamang noong taong 2021. Bigla pong tumaas yung traveling expenses ng OVP sa halos 60 million pesos bawat taon. At consistent po yun, taong 2024, 62.5 million at doon po sa proposal para sa 2025, nasa 62.5 million din. Dito po, Mr. Chair, nais ko po sanang tanungin yung COA. Meron po ba kayong ginagawang assessment or audit patungkol po sa nature of the travels? Tinitignan niyo po ba kung ito ba ay necessity? Necessary po ba ito to the fulfillment of the duties or the mandate of the Office of the Vice President? Tinitignan po ba natin kung reasonable yung gastusin sa bawat travel? Ano pong klaseng audit yung ginagawa po ng COA patungkol po sa traveling expenses, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, Mr. Tomawis, you're recognized.
Congressman Swansing, Mr. Chair, for the traveling expenses po, we base our audit on the Executive Order 77, wherein may mga prescribed rates po doon for the travel abroad and local travel, and may mga parameters and guidelines and procedures and Also, we have also the documentary requirements ng COA, wherein may mga requirements required to be submitted to substantiate or to validate yung mga travel expenses na na-incur ng agency.
Mr. Chair, thank you, sir. That's from the audit standpoint po eh. Maganda din po kasi sana kung meron po sana, Mr. Chair, na representante mula po sa Office of the Vice President. Maganda po sana nating maitanong na bakit kinailangan nila yung ganito kalaki na gastusin na traveling expense po. Kasi po nung sa mga previous years po, di ba po halos kung titignan natin, almost 20% lamang or 1/5 lamang nung kasalukuyang gastusin ng OVP yung traveling expenses. So, alam ko po na hindi masasagot ng COA yung dahilan kung bakit dumami yung travels. Pero sana po mabigyan po tayo ng linaw ng Office of the Vice President kung ito bang mga travels na ito ay necessary po at ano po yung papaano po ito nag-a-align doon po sa mga objectives at mandate ng Office of the Vice President.
Mr. Chair, may I answer
Yes, Mr.
po?
Tomawis, you are recognized.
Based on our report po, dun sa travel expenses, since ang OBP for the 2023, nag-full blast sila kasi nagkaroon po ng expansion, which is yung satellite offices and also yung disaster operations nila. Wherein the other previous administration po kasi wala pong satellite offices. That's why lahat po ng travel expenses in relation to the operations in the satellite offices, kaya po lumaki yung amount of expenses pertaining to the travel expenses.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask COA as a follow-up, yung travel expenses po ba, yan ay travel expenses ng mga staff ng satellite offices?
Based on this, kasama po.
Mr. Chair, maaari po bang ibahagi sa atin ng COA ilan pong porsyento dito po sa 59.5 million para po sa taong 2023, ilan po dyan magkano po dyan yung local travel versus foreign travel? Maibabahagi niyo po ba iyon?
As to the breakdown po, we cannot commit to answer the breakdown today po kasi wala po sa aming report as of this day po yung breakdown kung ilan po yung para doon sa staff at sa satellite offices.
Mr. Chair, siguro as an observation lang po, even naman po if we would look at previous administrations, ang nature naman po talaga ng jurisdiction ng Vice President ay national in nature. So, bumabiyahe naman po talaga yung ating mga Vice Presidents all over the country. So, siguro po, yun nga, baka ang accounting factor lang po nun kung bakit tumaas ay dahil po dun sa mga satellite offices. At yun po siguro yung tanong natin, Mr. Chair, dati pa, simula pa nung nagkaroon tayo ng pagtalakay patungkol dito, ano po ba yung necessity noong mga satellite offices na iyon kung napakalaki po nung epekto nun doon po sa mga expenses, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would like to move to the second category po, which are the supplies and materials expenses. Siguro, Mr. Chair, isa po sa makikita natin dito ay, sorry po, Comsec, previous slide lang po. Ayan po. Yung second category po ay yung supplies and material expenses, Mr. Chair.
Yung slide, please.
Ayan po. Ito po siguro, Mr. Chair, yung medyo kailangan natin pagtuunan ng pansin. Napakalaki po nung tinaas, noong expenses pagdating po sa supplies and materials. Noong taong 2021 po, yun ay nasa 92 million. Para sa taong 2022, 53.5 million. Pero po sa taong 2023, times 5 po yung itinaas noong supplies and materials expenses. At patuloy po yung pagtaas, tumaas po siya ng 70 million sa pagitan ng 2023 at 2024 at tumaas palalo by 60 million mula po 2024 at 2025. Siguro, Mr. Chair, ang tanong ko po patungkol dito, pag tinignan po natin yung mga kategorya or subcategories under the supplies and materials expenses, titignan po natin, office supplies, welfare goods, drugs and medicines expenses, medical, dental, and laboratory supplies, fuel, oil, and lubricants, semi-expandable machinery and equipment, semi-expandable furniture, fixtures, books, at other supplies and materials expenses. Siguro po, tatanungin po natin, bakit po kakailanganin yung daang-daang milyon para po sa mga supplies at materyales na ito. So, Mr. Chair, dahil po wala po tayong representante mula po sa OVP na sasagot ng tanong na ito, kung maaari ko pong matanong muli sa COA, may ginawa po ba kayong audit o assessment patungkol po sa nature nitong mga purchases na ito?
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized po?
Yes, Mr. Tumawis.
Mr. Chair, the main reason po nung increase nung supplies and material expenses from 2022 to 2023 is reason po is nagkaroon po ng extensive na mga disaster operations during the 2023 at the same time po nagkaroon po ng satellite offices. So particularly po kung makikita niyo po dun sa welfare goods and expenses, yan po yung lumaki po talaga at dun sa other supplies and material expenses wherein mayroon po dun program po si Office of the Vice President about the pagbabago campaign, A Million Learners and Trees program po. So wherein yung mga distributions nila po doon or mga supplies na nagagamit, dito po na i-record. So kung hindi natin po kasi maki-compare sa 2022 kasi po magkakaiba po yung programs in the 2023 wherein dumami na po yung programs ni OBP. And then at the same time, if I may read the notes to FS po, doon sa welfare goods, the welfare goods expenses consist of relief goods and food boxes distributed to the disadvantaged individuals and families and to those affected by various calamities. It also includes the purchase of rice intended for the relief operations. And nandito rin po na ang reason po ng increase is due to the extensive relief operation in CY 2023 conducted by the Disaster Operations Center and various satellite offices. That's for the welfare goods po, kaya po siya tumaas. Then for the other supplies and material expenses, nag-increase po kasi may mga purchase schools bags and other supplies po na binibigay po ng Office of the Vice President relative dun sa pagbabago campaign po na program po nila.
Mr. Chair, siguro po ang tanong ko po sa COA, para kasing program project-based yung mga expenses po na nabanggit ninyo, chargeable po ba siya dapat sa MOOE?
Yes po. Yes, Mr. Chair. Depende po kung ano yung nature.
Siguro,
And-
go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, may I be
Yes,
recognized?
Ma'am Hemora, you are
Thank you,
recognized.
Chair. Of course, ma'am, with the programs comes the different items that will be used for the implementation of the program. So if there will be, like earlier said by Mr. Fahad, there were ano ba yun? Mga welfare goods that were procured and other bags for the, ano ba yung program? Pagbabago Kaday program. So, these are recorded in the MOE for the procured items that were related to the implementation of the different programs implemented during the year.
Mr. Chair, dahil po napakalaki po noong halaga na ating pinag-uusapan dito sa supplies and materials expenses, meron na po bang liquidation na naganap para sa mga ito? Na-audit na po ba yung liquidation, lalo na po doon sa mga disaster operations, doon po sa mga bags, school supplies? Natapos na po ba yung liquidation and audit?
Mr. Chair, for the
Yes,
audit of
Mr.
2023, natapos na po namin yung audit. So based on an audit, meron na po kaming audit report and mga findings which are included na po sa annual audit report ng 2023. So which is pertaining po dun sa deficiencies noted on the distribution of welfare goods as also for the deficiencies noted on the Pagbabago campaign program. So we have issued audit observation memorandum, and we also included in our report all our findings on that programs po.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think COA highlighted something very important. Ito pong welfare goods, which is a huge percentage of the supplies expenses po, ay subject po ng AOM. Tama po ba? Opo. Kung pwede po sana nating makita yon, Mr. Chair, kapag pwede na pong maipakita sa atin ng COA, dahil po gusto nating siguraduhin na gastos po ng tama itong mga yung halaga dito po sa welfare goods at doon po sa pagbabago program, dahil po subjected siya sa AOM. Mahalaga po para sa committee din na ito na makita po kung ano yung findings ng COA. Lalo na po doon sa deficiencies, siguro po sa mga acknowledgement receipts po ba yan, sa liquidation reports, mga resibo, ganun po ba? Sa procurement process po ba yung findings ng COA, Mr. Chair?
Your
Yes,
Honor,
Ms. Kimura.
yeah. For the different audit observations included in the annual audit report, we have already, more or less, it's on like for example, the distribution list of the welfare goods and other items that were distributed to the different recipients of these programs. So, if the audit report, we have already submitted to the oversight body of the Congress, which is to the Speaker of the House, which we are, of course, mandated to in, what's this, September, no? Or July, I think, or August, we already submitted. But of course, if the committee would request a copy, we would readily provide you with, even if before the December 1 publication, subject to the, of course, approval of the Commission on Audit Chairperson, Your Honor.
Mr. Chair, kung pwede po nating tanungin sa COA, kung pwede niyo pong i-disclose sa committee natin ngayon, how much is the amount in question under the AOM? Ilang milyon po?
Wala tayong amount.
How many hundreds of thousands of pesos?
Guidelines lang naman, ma'am, yung... Mr. Chair, may I be recognized?
Yes, Mr. Tomawis, you're recognized.
Actually, yung as to the amount po, is hindi namin masasabi na itong amount na to is may irregularity or may somewhat. But then, our audit kasi po is, or audit report is, or this result is pertaining dun sa mga deficiencies observed dun sa existing guidelines. So more on the internal control po ng distribution of welfare goods, yung mga nakita naming may deficiencies wherein they need to improve it para po ma-secure na yung distribution po is talagang nakakarating po sa mga tao.
Pero, di ba po, nakita ko na po kasi yung previous AOMs nyo eh. Mako-compute mo more or less eh. How much is the amount in question under the AOM? Kasi po yung previous chart po, di ba, na ginawa ko po at linatag ko po sa komite. Kaya ko po nagawa yung mga numbers na yon kasi pag tinignan nyo po yung AOM, sa dulo ng AOM, may total amount po yun eh.
Mr. Chair, we usually audit the accounts. Kung, for example po, yung welfare goods. So yung naka-record po sa balance niya is 176 million, but then it doesn't mean po na lahat po yun is yun yung may irregularities or may something. So kung titingnan po natin, we only base our result on the internal control as a whole for the distribution of welfare goods.
Sige po, Mr. Chair. Once the AOM is available, Mr. Chair, I would like to seek your permission for me to peruse it. Kasi po, medyo malaki yung amount na binabanggit po ng COA ngayon, 176 million yung welfare goods. And doon po nakita yung deficiencies doon po sa audit findings ng COA pagdating po sa mga supplies. So, Mr. Chair, I think this is a flag that the committee should take a look at. And pag nakita ko po yung AOM, Mr. Chair, I will peruse it and for our committee po. Mr. Chair, I would like to move to the next category, which is the professional services, Mr. Chair. If I may request the COMSEC again to please show previous slide po. Mr. Chair, pagbabalikan po natin ulit, doon sa professional services, same pattern po, Mr. Chair, napakalaki ng pagtaas. Mula po sa 75 million ng 2021 at 56.1 million ng 2022. Bigla pong tumaas, lumaktaw po more than 3 times to 194 million ng taong 2023, 98 million ng 2024 at 105 million sa proposed 2025. Siguro, Mr. Chair, ang interesante po nating tignan dito ay doon po sa taong 2023, mas mataas pa yung expenses sa professional services kaysa po sa personnel services. So, ibig sabihin, mas maraming externally contracted na mga services kaysa po yung mga personal services na internal na plantilla positions within the OVP. So siguro po, one thing I would like to flag to COA as well is yung professional services po ng 2023 ay mas mataas pa sa internal or personal services ng OVP. Pangalawa po, Mr. Chair, if titignan po natin yung subcategories under professional services, 3 pong klase yon. May auditing services, consultancy services, and other professional services. Siguro, it would be interesting, Mr. Chair, to take a look at this na bakit po umaabot ng 194 million, almost 200 million, yung expenses ng OVP para po sa externally contracted or professional services, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, again, ideally, gusto po sana nating tanungin yung OVP para maipaliwanag po nila to. Pero kung masasagot po tayo ng COA ngayong araw, base po sa kanilang audit findings patungkol po dito.
Mr. Tomawis.
Sige po. Mr. Chair, based on the audit report po, ang actual expenditure for the professional services is only 62.6 million. Aside from that, budgeted po. Kasi based on the GAA po, di ba po yung 194 million. So based on the actual po is only 62.6 million po yung na-incur during the 2023. As compared po dun sa 2022 na 56 million po.
So, Mr. Chair, that's... I'll do a quick math. 1 second.
So hindi ko alam kung may balik, ma'am, o hindi na-release.
So, ibig sabihin po, 32% lang yung utilization nila for professional services? Ano po yun? Quick math lang po, 32 divided by 194.
Yes po.
Opo. Sige, Mr. Chair. That I understand. Pero in the succeeding year, 2024 po, meron na po ba kayong utilization report? Running utilization po?
Unfortunately po, Mr. Chair, for the 2024 po, wala pa po kaming running balance as to the utilization po.
Mr. Chair, pwede ko po ba tanungin sa COA kung patungkol po sa professional services, gumagawa po ba kayo ng audit or ng assessment patungkol po dun sa nature ng mga kontrata? Ibig sabihin po, yung nature of the projects na nagkokontrata sila for, and then whether the enlistment of these consultants are necessary. Chine-check niyo po ba yun? May ganun po bang assessment na ginagawa yung COA?
For the audit po usually, we are bound by yung mga rules and procedures po. Tinitingnan po namin to the extent po na nako-comply ng agency po yon. If ever po may mga deficiencies or not compliance doon sa rules and regulation, we communicate the information to the management and take their management comments. Then after that po, nagkakaroon na po ng evaluation, then that's the time po nagkakaroon na po ng kung masasatisfy kami or kung if ever lang na hindi na-comply. If ever hindi pa rin kami satisfied with their management comments, then meron na po tayong mga other actions po.
Sir, yun lang, Mr. Chair. Kailangan lang po nating tignan. And I think this is a sort of assessment that COA is not able to do at present. We need to check the necessity of these contracts. Is it actually necessary for the OVP to undertake these contracts with, for example, the different auditing firms, law firms, etc. And kung tama ba yung kontrata. Kasi yun lang po, mataas po siya eh. For 2024, while 62 million lang yung sa 2023, ang hiningi po muli ng OVP para sa 2024 ay halos 100 million. So, yun lang po. Sana po matignan din po ng COA yung necessity of engaging in these contracts, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I may recognize po. Okay. Mr. Chair, since nabanggit po ni Congressman Swansing yung sa other professional services, actually yung other professional services po is pertaining dun sa mga cost of services na binabayad natin sa contract of service personnel po ng OBP. Since po nagkaroon po ng satellite offices ang OBP, they need to hire more contractual services po. That's why po yung mga sweldo po nila, pinapasweldo po natin sa kanila is dito po kinukuha dito sa fund na to.
Noted on that, Mr. Chair. Thank you. For the next one, Mr. Chair, General Services po. Gusto ko pong mag-move dun po sa susunod natin na category. If I may again request the COMSEC to please flash. Dito po sa General Services, Mr. Chair, similar po to the other line items, napakalaki po ng pagtaas. Mula po sa 10 million ng 2021, 14 million ng 2022, at 9.9 million ng 2023. Bigla pong tumaas to 42.7 million para po sa taong 2024. At ganun din po yung pinopropose na OVP para sa taong 2025. Sir, Mr. Chair, interesante po tignan itong kategorya na ito sapagkat pag tinignan po natin yung subcategories under general services, pag nakita po natin, environment and sanitary services, janitorial services, security services, and other general services, mapapatanong po tayo na bakit po na-multiply po by 5 times yung gastos ng OVP between year 2023 and 2024. Kasi po itong mga nature ng mga services na ito, like janitorial services, sanitary services, security services, should be fairly stable and consistent across years. So, bakit po tumaas ng halos 33 million? Yun pong general services, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Tumawis.
For the actual expenditure po ng general services for the 2023 is around 25 million po.
So, 9.9 yung budgeted, naging 25 million.
Yes po, Mr. Chair.
And for 2024, Mr. Chair, hindi pa tayo masasagot ng COA.
Your Honor, may I be recognized?
Yes, Ms. Yamora.
The MOE, which is incurred by the OVP in relation to professional services based on the financial statements submitted by the OVP but not yet audited, di ba? But not yet audited by our team, totaling 11.6 million po. That's for the janitorial and security services, Your Honor. From January to July 2024. That's the latest financial statements that have been submitted to the Commission on Audit. So particularly the financial statements on performance.
Noted, Mr. Chair. So I guess po yung projected natin for end of year is roughly 23 to 25 million
yes.
then, times 2. Noted on that, Mr. Chair. And last category po, which I would like to focus on, would be the rent and lease expenses, Mr. Chair. Rent and lease expenses, I believe majority of this goes into the rent and the leases of the satellite offices. So Mr. Chair, dito po makikita natin na taong 2023 ay 33 million po, 60 million ng 2024, at ang hinihiling po na OVP ay 80 million para sa taong 2025. So Mr. Chair, for the rental expenses, Comsec, please move to the next slide. Dito po, Mr. Chair, makikita po natin yung detalye kung magkano po yung binabayaran ng OVP na renta para po sa kanilang mga satellite offices. Mr. Chair, this is based off, actually this is directly lifted from the briefer on OVP's rent or lease expenses and satellite offices as of September 19, 2024, supplied by the Commission on Audit. Siguro, Mr. Chair, several things that we would like to highlight here. So for the central office of the OVP in Cybergate, ang binabayaran po na monthly rent ay 2.1 million pesos para po sa head office. Para po sa, bukod po doon, yung Disaster Operations Center, meron pong 258,000 na rent every month. And then for the other satellite offices, Mr. Chair, meron po tayong nakikita dito na malalaki din. Halimbawa po yung sa Cagayan Valley, satellite office po ay 115,000 every month. Para po sa Bicol, 155,000 every month. Sa Cebu ay 149,000 every month. Sa Caraga po, medyo malaki po, 220,000 every month. And sa BARM po ay 120,000 every month. So siguro, Mr. Chair, ang tanong ko po dito sa COA, kasi po several of these seem very high for the location in terms of the rental rate being paid for a certain location. So ang tanong ko po sa COA, meron po ba kayong ginagawang assessment kung dumaan po sa tamang canvassing, bidding, procurement procedures, ito pong mga satellite offices bago po mag-enter into the contracts?
Mr. Chair, based on the audit po, itong mga pag-procure po ng rent expenses ng OBP, dumaan po siya sa Procurement Act 9184.
So, Mr. Chair, does that mean na nagkaroon ng canvassing, nagkaroon ng bidding?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Next question, Mr. Chair. May ginagawa po bang assessment yung COA kung at par po sa market rental rates yung binabayaran ng OVP? Halimbawa po, for BARM, doon po sa Cotabato City, para po sa 220 square meters na property, ganun po ba yung going rate sa Cotabato City?
Mr. Chair, one of the supporting documents po dun sa payment of rental po is yung cost-benefit analysis po ng agency. So doon namin ini-evaluate kung tama po ba yung rate na nakuha nila based on that cost analysis po, cost-benefit analysis.
Mr. Chair, sorry, what do you mean po by you're basing off whether the market rate is correct based on the cost-benefit analysis? Kasi hindi po ba ang assessment dapat niyan ay titignan nyo yung comparable properties in the area? Hindi po siya cost-benefit analysis, Mr. Chair.
They are also comparable po, nagko-compare po sa ibang lessors.
Can you categorically confirm, Mr. Chair, that you've done that for every single one of these satellite offices?
Unfortunately po, ang audit po kasi namin is on a sampling basis po. So it is not 100% po for the whole satellite offices.
So which, Mr. Chair, of these satellite offices did you do that assessment on?
Pwede, kasi hindi kami ma-recall po kung ano yung satellite offices particular na nakita namin. We can submit na lang po kung ano yung satellite offices na-evaluate na po namin as to that reasonableness of amount.
Kasi Mr. Chair, just looking at it and doing like a quick research po, I didn't do like an on-the-ground research. Several of these po kasi seem to stand out na medyo mataas po yung rental rate para po dun sa size ng property, dun po sa lokasyon, para po dito sa ibang mga satellite offices. So if COA may please provide that information, Mr. Chair, alin po talaga dito yung nagawa nila ng assessment kung talagang at par sa market rate yung binabayaran po na rental rate ng Office of the Vice President, Mr. Chair.
So Mr. Chair, we will submit na lang po yung sinabi ni Congressman Swansing po.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think I've gone through all of the categories, all of the line items that I wanted to highlight in today's committee hearing. Siguro, Mr. Chair, mas maganda talaga sana kung nandito po yung representante mula po sa Office of the Vice President para po masagot yung ating mga katatungan patungkol po dito sa mga expenditures ng Office of the Vice President. Kasi Mr. Chair, ang gusto talaga natin gawin dito sa committee na ito, both for confidential funds and regular funds, ay gusto po natin siguraduhin na bawat piso po na ating ipinagkakatiwala sa Office of the Vice President, pinagkakatiwala po ng sambayan ng Pilipino ay nagagastos po sa tamang paraan. So siguro, Mr. Chair, what we keep on wanting to highlight in this committee hearing is there really is urgency in terms of demanding transparency, in terms of the budgeting, in terms of the utilization. Kasi halimbawa, Mr. Chair, in the absence of the COA reports, hindi natin alam na halimbawa ang inappropriate pala natin sa OVP is 194 million para sa professional services, pero ang nagamit lang pala nila is 62 million. Yung mga ganun po ba, Mr. Chair, utilization, liquidation, kailangan po talaga nating tutukan yun at tignan. At Mr. Chair, para po doon sa deficiencies na binanggit po ng COA, lalong-lalo na po doon sa 176 million na nabanggit ninyo patungkol po doon sa welfare goods, under supplies and materials expenses na kasalukuyan na pong subject ng AOM. Sana po ay matutukan niyo po yun. Masigurado po natin, medyo nakakabahala po yung sinabi niyo na ang kulang po ay distribution list. Ibig sabihin, sino yung mga naging beneficiary, kung tama po yung pagkakaintindi ko doon po sa statement ninyo, parang kailangan siguraduhin na napunta doon sa mga intended beneficiaries, yung mga relief goods, yung mga bags, mga school supplies na binabanggit ninyo. Kaya sana po napakalaking halaga po nung ating pinag-uusapan, 176 million po para sa isang kategorya, para sa isang taon. Kaya sana po ay maimbestigahan po at matutukan po ng Commission on Audit ito pong mga deficiencies na tinutukoy nila dito po sa ating expenses. And yun lang, Mr. Chair, uulitin ko lang po. Looking at the figures po overall, dalawa po yung makikita natin. Di hamak po na mas malaki yung expenses, yung mga gastusin ng Office of the Vice President mula po taong 2023 hanggang sa kasalukuyan kumpara po sa mga naunang taon. At pangalawa, napakalaki po nung increase sa bawat taon noong mga gastusin po ng Office of the Vice President. Kaya yun lang po, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to propound questions to our resource persons.
Okay. The next interpellator is Congresswoman Luistro.
Mr. Chair. A
Yes,
quick manifestation,
Congressman
Mr.
Congon.
Chair. Mr. Chair, just a quick question lang, Mr. Chair, kay Attorney Powa. Gusto lang po namin maklarify. Attorney Powa, ang ginamit niyo pong term kanina is you were pre-terminated, tama po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Gusto lang po namin malaman kung kayo po ba yung nag-resign or tinanggal sa OVP?
Nag-ano po kami, nagkaroon kami ng pag-uusap prior to the previous hearing. It was really a mutual decision, Your Honor.
What do you mean mutual po? Tinanggal ka po ba o nag-resign ka?
Nag-decide po kaming mutually kasi nag-express po ako na hindi ko kayang i-fulfill yung obligations ng contract as a spokesperson because to be honest with you, since I'm also a resource person here, I found it very difficult for me to go on media and be interviewed on the same matter kasi nawawala yung objectivity because I'm also part of the hearing as a resource person. So, sinabi ko po yun na I don't think I am capable of really fulfilling the contract. Naintindihan naman po ako, so we mutually decided na i-pre-terminate na po. Kasi ang contract ko po ay dapat hanggang December of this year. So, pin-re-terminate na lang po namin yung kontrata po.
Kanino po kayo nagpaalam?
Sa ating Vice President po.
Naging mutual po ba yung decision na ito? Or
I would like to think so, Your Honor, to be honest. Kasi ako naman, very forthright ako. Nagsabi ako ng difficulties that I'm encountering. Medically, I'm affected. But also, beyond that, it's really hindi ko ma-fulfill yung trabaho ko. Hindi ako makapagpa-interview. Hindi dahil sa ayaw ko, pero I think it would be inappropriate.
Squarely the findings that we have established already, among others, is the huge cost of rentals for the safe houses, most especially the 16 million confidential fund that was used in 11 days for the safe houses. Second, the confirmation of Attorney Osayas with regards to the receipt of DepEd envelope payola, which has been testified to already in the previous hearings by Yusek Mercado. And third is the denial of the AFP of having received any fund from the DepEd with respect to the Youth Leadership Summits and the information and education campaign which were conducted. Nonetheless, Mr. Chair, there's one remark of the Vice President which indeed captured the attention of this representation. And if I can ask the Secretariat to please play this video clip of the press con. Since we're having some technical problem, let me share with you what she said during that press con. She said that the DepEd Confidential Fund ay ginamit para magbigay ng impormasyon sa militar at sa local government units kung saan dapat gawin ang Youth Leadership Summits at ang Information Education Campaign. First of all, Mr. Chair, I find it really strange. A civilian office like the Department of Education is the one which will be providing a confidential information to the military and the LGU with respect to national security. Hindi po ba baligtad ito, Mr. Chair, because it is indeed the mandate of the AFP to promote and secure the national security and interest of our country. Pero dito po sa naging pronouncement ng ating Vice Presidente, she said ang confidential fund ng Department of Education ay ginamit para magbigay ng impormasyon sa militar at sa LGU kung saan dapat gawin ang Youth Leadership Summits at ang Information Education Campaign. Mr. Chair, I wish to invite the attention of the committee to the certifications that were issued by the AFP and were submitted by the DepEd to COA in support of the utilization of the DepEd Confidential Fund, and the same provides YLS and IECs are conducted to prevent recruitment of teachers and students by terrorists and insurgents. May we request Attorney Camora to please confirm kung ito nga po ba ay nakasaad sa certifications ng AFP.
Attorney Camora.
Mr. Chair.
The certifications submitted by AFP to DepEd and which were subsequently submitted by DepEd to COA in support of the utilization of the DepEd Confidential Fund provides, among others, that YLS and IECs are intended to prevent recruitment of teachers and students by insurgents and rebels.
That is what is contained in the certification, Mr.
So you
Chair.
confirm?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And having said so, Mr. Chair, we must understand that there are 4 existing programs of DepEd. And I wish to know also from COA, sang program po ba pumasok ito? Because we have to understand that each program has their corresponding expenditure of the confidential fund. Can we please flash each program along with the corresponding expenditures? The program includes counterinsurgency, abuse prevention and control, anti-illegal activities, and anti-extremist or terrorism activities. Ang bawat programa pong ito ay may kanya-kanyang expenditures ng confidential fund. And if we can show this table, Secretariat, please. The table shows that for counterinsurgency program, first quarter, DepEd spent 2 million, and second quarter, DepEd spent 2,050,000. The second program is abuse prevention and control within schools, and expenditures for first quarter, 2.130 million. Second quarter is 2.370 million. Anti-illegal activities, first quarter, 1.5 million, and second quarter, 1.7 million. And for anti-extremism, first quarter, 1.8 million, and second quarter, 1.8 million. I understand, Mr. Chair, that the YLS and the Education Information Campaign has to fall in any of these programs. And considering the purpose that was indicated in the certification submitted to COA, I wish to believe na ito pong mga YLS na to at IECs na to ay part ng counter-insurgency program. Tama po ba ito, Attorney Camora?
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
And having said that, Attorney Camora, ang total expenditures po for the counter-insurgency program is only 4,050,000 pesos, when the amount utilized is 15,540,000 pesos. Mayroon pong nawawala 10,490,000 pesos. Saan po kaya napunta itong diferensya ng nasabing amount?
Mr. Chair, we considered the entirety since ang sabi naman po, focus on protecting the schools and the youth from physical harm, criminalities, terrorism, and drug abuse. So, hindi na lang po siya sa counterinsurgency.
Mr. Chair, is it the intention of Attorney Camora to consider that the entire amount utilized, that is 15,040,000, were spent in all these 4 programs of DepEd? Is that what you are trying to say, Attorney Camora?
The fund was used for the payment of rewards po in relation to these 4 programs.
Yes,
So,
but there are
opo.
4 programs of the DepEd under which the utilization must fall. Kaya ang tanong ko po sa inyo kanina, when the certification provides that YLS and IECs are conducted to prevent recruitment of teachers and students by extremists and terrorists. Ito po ba ay tamang nasa ilalim ng counterinsurgency program?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Because if so, since most of the expenses, or I should say all, of the 15,540,000 was utilized for this YLS and IECs, ang napapaloob pong expenditures for counterinsurgency program is only 4,050,000. Hinahanap ko po, Attorney Camora, saan po napunta yung 10,490,000?
Ayun nga po. Actually, binase din po namin sa certification na they've made mention that it is to protect the schools and the students from physical harm, criminalities, terrorism, which is one of the, and drug abuse po. So,
Then why did they not indicate those purposes in the certifications?
it's on the certification po. I'm reading from the certification po.
The certification provide for prevention of recruitment by the terrorists and rebels. Am I correct, Attorney?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ano pa po bang ibang purpose ang nakasaad sa certification? Mayroon pa po bang ibang purpose?
Nakalagay po kasi, also because of this exchange of information, we were able to perform our civil-military combat and intelligence operations in our AOR with focus on protecting the schools, their students, and the youth from physical harm, criminalities, terrorism, and drug abuse.
So from your point of view, Attorney Tamora, saang program po ba napapaloob itong YLS at IECs?
Sa anti-insurgency.
If you are saying that this falls under the anti-insurgency program, ano naman pong activities kaya ang kinonduct ng DepEd in line with their abuse prevention, anti-illegal activities, and anti-extremism?
Based din po dito sa YLS, yun pong other purposes nung YLS.
In other words, Attorney Tamora, you will agree with me that all the certifications pertain to YLS and IECs only.
Pero meron pong other purpose po kasi silang nilagay sa certification.
Then please enlighten us what activity falls under abuse prevention. What activity falls under anti-illegal activities?
I think the YLS activities also included, yun nga po, lectures on drug abuse, criminalities.
Are you not particular about defining, identifying sang programa po ba ito na papaloob? How are you able to account the expenditures if you are not even aware kung saan programa kasama yung mga activities ng DepEd?
I think that was not part of the yung naging part nung review nito. Dahil nung nagpasubmit po kami ng sa rewards,
I will raise the same question for the last time, attorney. You were saying that the YLS and the IEC fall under counterinsurgency program.
yes, Mr.
And that
Chair.
is only 4,050,000.
Yes, Mr.
Way
Chair.
below the 15,040,000 confidential fund that was utilized by DepEd. What therefore are the activities that fall under abuse prevention first?
Mr. Chair, ito lang po yung naging basis namin, Mr. Chair.
I understand that this 15 million is not even a subject matter of an AOM or an ND. Tama po ba ako?
It was a subject matter of AOM po.
And then what happened with the AOM?
And then this is their answer, yung certification po.
And you simply adopted this.
Yes po.
And you agree with me that it is not clear with COA kung anong activity ang pumasok in every or each of the 4 programs.
Hindi na po namin kinategorize, Mr. Chair.
I wish to invite the attention of the committee to the total amount spent for all these programs. Nasa ilalim po. First quarter is 7.5 and then second quarter is 8.31. How can you give us a clear presentation on how this 15 million was utilized if you could not identify under which program every activity falls? Ano po bang ibig sabihin ng pagtango nyo, attorney?
Yun po, hindi po na-consider nung nag-evaluate po na i-categorize siya according to the programs of the DepEd.
But can you confirm to us, yun po bang certifications na sinasabi nyo, which is stated that YLS and IECs are intended to prevent recruitment? Pare-parehas po ba yan? O may iba pa pong purpose na nabanggit?
Ayun po, yung isang certification may ganun pong nakalagay na other purpose.
How many certifications are we talking about, attorney?
Dalawa lang.
For the entire 15,040,000 pesos confidential fund of
Pero
DepEd.
ilan? Mr. Chair, dalawa lang po.
Dalawang certification lang po. And I think it will be very easy with you at least to categorize, Attorney Camora. San po bang program na pasama yan? Dadalawa naman pala. Can you please read the purpose of the first certification?
These combined activities benefited 1,300 participants for the YLS and 8,754 students for the IEC. These collaborative efforts with the DepEd, Region 1 NICA, Regional Office 1, and OPAPRU were conducted to insulate the students from exploitation by the communist terrorist groups and inform them of the ills of terrorism and communism.
Would you
Very
agree
first-
with me that that is counterinsurgency program?
Yes, Mr.
How
Chair.
much is the amount indicated?
There is no amount indicated in this particular
There is no amount
certification.
indicated. How about the other certification? Can you please read to us?
Only the first purpose po. Kasi, Mr. Chair, there is a second purpose in this one.
What
which
is the second purpose?
Yung verse po na binasa ko na about criminalities, terrorism, and drug abuse. And then,
Is there any third and fourth purposes?
No, Mr. Chair.
Wala na. First
Opo.
and second.
Yes, Mr.
So in other words, the certifications provide, first is the counterinsurgency, and second, it encompasses the 3 other remaining programs.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
However, I wish to manifest, Mr. Chair, that the COA should be able to identify under which program each expenditures fall, because if I will be basing our interpretation to the certification, which states as primary purpose that the YLS and IECs are conducted to prevent recruitment, then it means that the program which is being implemented by DepEd is the counterinsurgency program. And considering that the amount which was spent for this program is only 4,050,000, I wish to be enlightened, magkano kaya yung nagastos for the abuse prevention, magkano kaya ang nagastos para sa anti-illegal activities, at magkano kaya ang nagastos para sa anti-extremism. It is my humble submission, Mr. Chair, that the COA should be able to identify this, to be able to give a clear presentation and account of the public funds which were utilized by the Office of the Department of Education. Mr. Chair, moving to my second observation, the DepEd Confidential Fund, according to the Vice President, was used to obtain information where military and LGU should hold the YLS and IEC. Again, I find this strange. Nabaligtad na po because the office which has the mandate on addressing the national security and interest is the AFP, the Office of the National Defense. So I wish to believe that matters concerning national security ay mas marami pong information ang DND compared to the Department of Education. But strangely, ang nakasaad po dito, ang confidential fund ng DepEd ay ginagamit para makakuha ng impormasyon at masabihan ang military kasama na ang LGU saan kayo magko-conduct ng Youth Leadership Summits at Information Education Campaign. Nonetheless, Mr. Chair, I wish to believe na dapat mayroon pong correlation ang source ng information at ang site or recipient ng YLS and IEC. Can we request the Secretariat to please flash the graph, the pie? Mr. Chair, the payment of rewards indicated in our graph shows, or should I say, is not consistent with the location of the recipient where the YLS and the IEC were conducted. Ang sabi po dito sa ating graph, nagkaroon ng payment of rewards sa Zamboanga del Norte, sa Zamboanga del Sur, sa Zamboanga Sibugay, sa Basilan, even in Sulu, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, La Union, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Zambales, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, Albay, Sorsogon, Masbate. However, Mr. Chair, the total of the payment of rewards is only 4,282,000. Again, if we compare this to the total amount of confidential fund, which is 15,540,000 pesos. Ang question, saan naman po kaya nadala itong nawawalang 11,258,000 pesos? Can we ask Attorney Camora, mayroon po ba kayong nakita sa inyong pag-audit? Saan ho ba nagkaroon ng YLS and IEC na hindi consistent sa location ng payment of reward?
Mr. Chair, yung location ng YLS and IEC is based on the certification po. These are the areas covered po nung activities. On the other hand, sa DEP po, yung payment of rewards, pwede po kasing yung informant is nasa ibang lugar or address po kasi niya yon or address niya kung saan man siya.
That
kung
is
saan
a
man
possibility, but
Opo.
I am certain that you were not able to inquire about that information anymore.
We don't inquire po beyond the
I understand, but are you really allowed to assume? Kasi what you are telling us is just an assumption. Pwede po na ang source of information ay nakatira sa Batangas. At magbibigay po siya ng impormasyon tungkol po sa Zamboanga del Norte. How do you think a person residing in Batangas will be familiar on what is